Chapter 312. You're courting death, Mi Yong shouted angrily. His body suddenly expanded and transformed into his true form. He charged at the immemorial Emperor Flame. Boom! The moment the two collided, a strange smell filled the air. Faintly, it smelled like meat. It smells so good, Feng Ling swallowed hard, scaring the furious chaos demonic ape so much that it almost fainted on the spot. Double shadow, I'll block it. See if you can trap it for a moment. Despite his fear, Mi Yong did not dare to be careless. The black staff in his hand transformed into thousands of demonic shadows and smashed down on the immemorial Emperor Flame's head. Poochie! However, the spiritual fire was incorporeal. Despite Mi Yong's innate strength, he was unable to affect it at all. On the other hand, his skin turned darker. It looked like it was about to be medium cooked. Gulp. Thousand illusions, bewildering array. Double shadow rushed over from the side, surrounded by demonic intent. A wisp of dim spirit light flashed, instantly trapping the immemorial Emperor Flame within. Roar. However, the illusion trapped the heart, not the body. The more complicated the heart, the easier it was to fall into the illusion. However, the immemorial Emperor Flame did not have high intelligence and was made of the origin energy. The appearance of countless demonic shadows seemed to have stimulated the immemorial Emperor Flame's ferocious nature. Its body, which was originally hundreds of feet long, expanded to hundreds of feet long in an instant. The countless illusions were destroyed, and an extremely hot aura spread out. Mi Yong swallowed hard. His body was originally similar to the immemorial Emperor Flame, but now, Double Shadow, I suspect that you're trying to kill the Lord. I folded Shadow's pretty face froze as she glared fiercely at Mi Yong. However, when she saw the spiritual fire suddenly descend towards Ling Xiao, a look of determination flashed across her eyes. Stop! But, at this moment, a soft shout came from the Glaze ancient pagoda. The ferocious flames that were descending from the sky seemed to have frozen in place, stopping 3 feet above Ling Xiao's head. Boring. Feng Ling snorted coldly before disappearing. Gulp. Both Mi Yong and Double Shadow were shocked. As expected of Lord Feng Ling. One word from him could suppress the world. Buzz. At the same time, spiritual light suddenly bloomed around Ling Xiao's body. When he opened his eyes, his expression also inexplicably trembled. F***CK. Why is the immemorial Emperor Flame so big? How am I going to merge it with my body? Is someone trying to kill me? Immemorial Emperor Flame. In the blink of an eye, Ling Xiao's expression calmed down. Soul light flashed in his eyes, and an invisible giant net wrapped around the Emperor Flame and pulled it into his body. Boom! The scorching heat assaulted him. It was a terrifying power that seemed capable of incinerating him into cinders. Flame Dao Law surged around Ling Xiao's body. Even so, his face turned pale in an instant. He immemorial Emperor immemorial. Immemorial Emperor immemorial. Immemorial. It turned out that the dangers they had experienced were much more terrifying than what was written in the books. All this while, Ling Xiao had relied on the system to help him with his cultivation. But now, when he was about to merge with the immemorial Emperor Flame, he felt a pressure he had never felt before. Buzz! As expected, Ling Xiao's skin began to fester and bleed. He looked terrible, as if his skin was about to split open. This kind of intense pain made him miss his sister-in-law very much. If Yi Sooner were by his side, she would be encouraging him and saying, "Brother, you're the best." Ling Xiao believed that two immemorial Emperor Flame would not be a problem for him. Sky Demon True Body. Demonic Qi began to spread. An ancient and majestic shadow appeared above Ling Xiao's head. At the same time, water vapor began to flow under Ling Xiao's skin, relieving his pain. Time passed slowly. When there was no more heat in the ancient pagoda, the young man who was sitting cross-legged suddenly opened his eyes. At that moment, Golden flames danced in Ling Zhao's eyes. An indescribably terrifying aura spread out. Mi Yong and Folded Shadow were so shocked that their hearts skipped a beat. Congratulations, Master! So, this is the experience of being the child of destiny. Ling Zhao muttered to himself. In the next moment, a sinister look flashed across his eyes. Damn! Being the villain is still more comfortable. Who wants to be the child of destiny? Anyway, you go through hardships and I go through you. As for the burning scripture, I'll leave it for Lin Meng and the others to cultivate. Really? My dick hurts. Ling Zhao shook his head and disappeared in front of Mi Yong and Folded Shadow. Why isn't brother back yet? Where did brother go? In the ancient palace, Bai Ling rubbed the corner of her clothes. She was bored and worried. Buzz! At that moment, the space in front of her suddenly trembled. Ling Zhao's figure appeared in front of her. Brother! Bai Ling never thought that there would be a day when she would be so worried about someone. 7 years of hardships had made her used to loneliness. However, Ling Zhao's appearance was like a ray of starlight in the endless darkness. It was dazzling and filled with heat. If she wasn't careful, it would be gone in the blink of an eye. Ling Zhao smiled faintly. He opened his arms and hugged the small figure. However, a hint of coldness flashed across his eyes. Ling does the sect know that you came out this time? Brother, don't worry. So what if they know? I'm the Blood Hall's holy daughter. Except for Master, they have to listen to me. Bai Ling smiled sweetly, revealing 2 beautiful canine teeth. Blood Hall's holy daughter. Then your relationship with your master must be very deep, right? Ling Zhao nodded slightly. He looked like he wanted to say something but stopped. This, however, to Ling Zhao's surprise, Bai Ling's beautiful eyes showed a hint of disappointment when she heard this. Then, she shook her head gently. Since I was young, Master only taught me how to kill people. He rarely cared about other things. I see. Ling I have something that I don't know if I should tell you, Ling Zhao smiled bitterly. However, he was inexplicably excited. Damn, this was really amazing. Brother, what is it that you can't tell Ling? Tell me quickly. Bai Ling snuggled in Ling Zhao's arms. This time, Master would definitely punish her if he knew that she had sneaked out. Although he might not be very strict, it would be a long time before she could come out to see brother Ling Zhao privately. At the thought of this, Bai Ling felt inexplicably wronged. She even wanted to grow up quickly so that she could take charge of the Blood Hall. Then, Master would not be able to control her. Actually, your brother and I have secretly investigated before. There seems to be a hidden story behind the massacre of the Lin family. Ling Zhao sighed. His expression was extremely complicated. He knew that what he was going to say next would definitely make this simple-minded little girl completely depressed. But it seemed very exciting just thinking about it. Hidden story? What hidden story? Sure enough, Bai Ling's expression instantly turned grave when she heard this. Over the years, she had used the power of the Blood Hall to investigate the massacre of the Lin family. However, she had not found a single clue. This matter was not normal to begin with. After all, the Blood Soul Temple was known as the Xingzhou Intelligence Agency. Even it could not find the murderer. Could it be that there was a hidden story behind this matter? Very suddenly, Bai Ling felt a strong sense of uneasiness. Chapter 313. Sigh. Ling should have inquired about what happened that year, right? You probably didn't find anything, right? Looking at the flickering fluctuations in the girl's eyes, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. It's starting. The destined girl was indeed smart. She started to fill in the gaps in her brain. Brother, how did you know? Bai Ling's expression turned cold, and the uneasiness in her heart grew stronger. The white-robed swordsman, an expert of the Taoist law, has a slender scar on his face. With such an obvious appearance, how could the Blood Soul Temple not find him? Boom! Suddenly, Bai Ling's eyes widened. That's right. Brother Ling Xiao was talking about the expert who slaughtered the Lin clan. It seemed that he really investigated this matter with Brother Lin Shi. But why? Why couldn't the Blood Soul Temple find him? Could it be? Impossible. But, according to our investigation, the white-robed swordsman is from the Blood Soul Temple. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at Bai Ling with a painful expression. Hearing this, Ling Er's delicate body trembled and she almost fell to the ground. Ling Er, how are you? No. It's impossible. Although Master is strict with me, he still dotes on me. How could he? In fact, she had already guessed it, but she didn't want to believe it. How could it be? I actually lived with the enemy who killed my adoptive father's clan for 7 years? Sigh, Ling Er, before we met you, Brother Lin and I were very confused as to why the Blood Soul Temple would travel thousands of miles to slaughter a small mountain clan. But after meeting you, I figured it out. Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and wiped away the tears in Bai Ling's eyes. It's because of your talent. I heard that the Blood Soul Temple always likes to recruit those orphans with hatred. Only in this way can they kill without any scruples. Of course, this is just my guess, but I have a way to verify it. What is it? Bai Ling was a little emotional. The strangeness of this matter had troubled her for many years. But now, after listening to Ling Xiao's explanation, everything seemed to make sense. Could it be it's really Master? Previously, in an ancient ruin, I once obtained a soul cultivation method. It's called the soul-absorbing ancient technique. It can control a person's soul. Although this kind of evil technique is not tolerated in the world, it also depends on who it is used on. I have always firmly believed that there is no evil power in this world, only evil people's hearts. Ling Xiao's face was filled with a righteous glow. Even Bai Ling's heart was filled with heartfelt admiration. Brother, you are truly the light of the righteous path. Ancient soul assimilation technique? Just from the name alone, one could tell how sinister this ancient technique was. Could it be that Big Brother was cultivating it? That's right, Ling Er. If we want to find out what happened to the Lin family, I'm afraid we have to start with the Blood Soul Temple. Brother, you mean? The Blood Soul Temple is really too mysterious. No one even knows where the sect is. Big Brother, the Sacred Hall is on Qingcang Mountain in the center of the Xingzhou continent. Ling Xiao stared blankly at Bai Ling. Was it that simple? Didn't such a mysterious assassin sect have extremely strict sect rules or soul restrictions that forbade their disciples from leaking any information? Green Mountain? That's right, brother. Usually I and Master, Blood Soul Temple Lord and senior brothers and sisters cultivate in Green Mountain. There are only the most direct descendants in the sect. The other experts of the temple usually do not appear. They are all hidden in various sections. Bai Ling nodded with a serious expression. Yes, that's right. For a sect like the Blood Soul Temple, there would not be many connections between the assassins. Even if they were all members of the temple, they might not know each other's identity. This way, one person would not be caught and the whole sect would not be exposed. And this was probably the reason why Bai Ling had never met the white-robed swordsman. Bai Ling, in your temple, there should be an elder who is in charge of assigning tasks to other disciples. It's best if they are not too strong. Ling Xiao's plan was very simple. He would let Bai Ling find a blood hall elder and search his soul. Everything would naturally come to light. The white-robed swordsman was from the blood hall. He did not lie to her about this. But this girl had been with the Blood Soul Temple Lord for 7 years. If he wanted to completely turn the two against each other, some things could not be said with words. He had to let her see it with her own eyes. There is an elder in the sect who is in charge of this. And that elder has been very good to me since I was young. He often brings me delicious food and fun things to play with. Bai Ling looked at Ling Xiao blankly. But at this time, she saw the corners of the latter's mouth curl up into a smile. Brother, you are not thinking of, this soul assimilation ancient skill is very magical. It will not make people lose their minds like the ordinary soul search. You only need to form a soul seal in his sea of consciousness, and his memories will naturally be seen by you. We are only using this skill to investigate the extermination of the Lin clan. We don't need to use it to harm people. Besides, as long as we find the answer we want, you can release that elder. Ling Xiao patiently persuaded, and the blankness on by Ling's face gradually dissipated. Brother, what you said makes sense. Although this skill was evil, it had different uses. As long as they could investigate the extermination of the Lin clan, it was not impossible to cultivate it. Moreover, Ling if the Blood Soul Temple Lord is really the mastermind behind the extermination of the Lin clan, do you think we can really avenge the Lin clan with our strength? If Brother Lin knows in the underworld, will he blame you for this? Ling Xiao sighed, as if he wanted to, but he was powerless. Brother, Bai Ling's beautiful eyes were filled with sadness. Yes. If the Blood Soul Temple Lord was really the mastermind behind this, then she was the culprit behind the extermination of the Lin clan. Brother Lin Shi must hate her to death. But the Blood Soul Temple was the most terrifying force in the Xingzhou, apart from the Saint sect. Not to mention Ling Xiao and her, even if the Ling people were to use all their strength, they would not be able to shake it. Therefore, this forbidden skill may be our only chance. Of course, how can I bear to let you cultivate such an evil skill? Ling you are so pure and kind. I will not allow you to be tainted by evil skills. How about this? I will cultivate it and then gather the soul seal. Then, you only need to use the power of the soul seal to control others. Ling Zhao's tone was undeniably domineering. Although Bai Ling did not fully understand what he meant, what did he mean by gathering the soul seal? What was the soul seal? But it felt very warm. Brother really did everything for Ling sake. I will listen to you. Bai Ling was not at all interested in evil skills. It was said that there were some evil skills in this world. Once cultivated, one would lose control and gradually become an evil spirit. Unless it was a last resort, she naturally did not want to try it. But if brother cultivated it, would he be in danger? Okay, then open your mind. I will gather the soul seal for you. Ling Xiao took a deep breath, and his eyes suddenly flashed with a monstrous soul light. Before Bai Ling could voice her concerns, a flickering ancient seal solidified and fell toward Bai Ling's soul sea. But, unlike the previous soul seal, this one did not disappear in a flash. Instead, it turned into a surge of soul power and completely enveloped Bai Ling's soul palace. The girl's eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. Suddenly, she felt as though there was an inexplicable connection between herself and Big Brother Ling Xiao. Although the connection was slight, it was real. But was this ancient skill so easy to cultivate? Brother mastered it in an instant. As expected of Brother, his talent was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 3:14. Alright, Ling don't use the power of this soul imprint easily. I will leave it in your sea of consciousness. Ordinary people won't be able to detect it, but I'm afraid someone will do something to you if they see it. Ling Xiao smiled gently. His tone was filled with concern. Ling Xiao had refined that soul imprint for a long time. Or rather, he had been preparing it since the day he met Bai Ling. His goal was, of course, not to control Bai Ling. Instead, he wanted her to help him control others. As long as Bai Ling used the power of the soul imprint, the person who would be controlled would not only be Bai Ling's soul slave, but also Ling Zhao's soul slave. Moreover, since this soul imprint was formed by Ling Xiao, he would have the absolute initiative. Even if Bai Ling removed the soul imprint, the soul slave would not be able to escape Ling Zhao's control. This kind of relationship was probably equivalent to "do you understand?" Ling Xiao stood at the top of the pyramid, and Bai Ling was one level below him. As for whether there would be a second or third level in the future, Ling Xiao thought that there would be. After all, this kind of control was absolute loyalty. He did not have to worry about anyone betraying him. Why not? Of course, someone might scold him. Wouldn't it be better to directly plant a soul imprint on Bai Ling? How should he put it? A soul imprint would more or less affect a person's behavior and expression. Although it was subtle, with Bai Ling's identity, if she showed any abnormality, the Blood-Soul Holy Lord would probably notice it immediately. Moreover, if a soul imprint was planted, it would not be able to activate the system's final reward. Moreover, once he did that, Bai Ling's providence would no longer be able to increase. Only a fool would do something like losing both pleasure and treasure. The system could not lie. Now, this girl already regarded him as her only family in the world. The reason why she did not completely submit was probably related to the Blood-Soul Holy Lord. Although Bai Ling said that her master was very strict, she still had some feelings for him in her heart. And as long as he could cut off this shackle of hers, this little sister would be his. Are you happy? What does it have to do with me? In any case, I enjoy it. Bai Ling could quietly plant this soul imprint on her teacher, hiss. Very happy, very happy. Of course, this soul seal also had another function, which was to prevent others from probing Bai Ling's spiritual sense memories. Once someone did it by force, the soul seal would shatter. As for Bai Ling, Ling Xiao didn't want to be targeted by the Blood-Soul Holy Lord before he could reap any benefit. That person's strength may not be the strongest, but his his ability to kill people while hiding in the dark is not below me at all. Alright, big brother. But won't it be dangerous for you to practice such a forbidden technique? At this point, Bai Ling was still worried about Ling Xiao's safety. Hearing this, Ling Xiao immediately shook his head and smiled. A dazzling bolt of lightning shot up into the sky from his body. Don't worry, Ling. I have the lightning principle with me. All evil in the world will be avoided. That's true. Big brother, you have comprehended the most yang energy in the world. How can a mere cultivation method affect your state of mind? Bai Ling smiled with sudden understanding. She had once heard that the experts who were able to comprehend the lightning Tao law were mostly upright and plain-spoken people with upright characters. Such people not only acted in an upright manner, but also had a strong Taoist heart. It seemed that this was the case. Ling although I don't want you to return to the Blood-Soul Holy Temple, it seems that to find out the blood feud between the Lin clan and the Lin clan, I can only wrong you. Ling Xiao's face was still filled with sorrow, as if he was worried about Bai Ling's trip. Big brother, what are you talking about? How can this be called wrong? It was my hatred to begin with. I made Big brother worry. Ling feels very guilty. Ling you must remember that this soul seal can only be used when the other party is completely relaxed. You must not be too hasty. If this is really done by the Blood-Soul Holy Lord, you must be more careful. Discuss with me first. Don't let him see any flaws for the time being. Otherwise, Ling Xiao repeatedly reminded her. He did not really care about Bai Ling's life or death. However, now she was the only spy in the Blood-Soul Holy Temple, which was enough for Ling Xiao to pay more attention to her. After all, when the white-robed swordsman came to the mortal world, it was really strange. Ling Xiao suspected that there were some shocking secrets hidden in the Blood-Soul Holy Temple. Big brother, I understand. If it is really the Blood-Soul Holy Lord, I will not let him go. Father, big brother, and more than 100 people of the Lin clan will not die in vain. Bai Ling clenched her silver teeth, and a touch of determination appeared on her small face. Big brother Ling Xiao, this time, it is all thanks to you. Otherwise, I might have been kept in the dark. You just need to remember that no matter when, I will stand behind you. Ling Xiao reached out, took Bai Ling's small hand, and walked out of the ancient temple. The trip to the Fire Tribe was fruitful. Not only did he reap 2 destined ones, but he also gained 2 heaven and earth spiritual fires, and a lost tribe. The moment Ling Xiao merged with the primordial emperor flame, He understood why the fire tribe had guarded this place for hundreds of years without leaving. Or rather, guarding such a precious treasure of heaven and earth, they had never been tempted. Ling Xiao did not believe that it was all because of loyalty. After all, the ancient emperor had died hundreds of years ago, and the fire tribe had been passed down for several generations. Even if the servants who followed the ancient emperor were loyal, did you expect his grandchildren to be as loyal as him? The path to immortality was vast, and there was endless joy. Who would be willing to guard a dead person's grave for life? What? It was in other people's novels? Then this tribe must be guarding the inheritance and good fortune for the main character. Otherwise, everyone knew that there was good fortune here. Why would they not fight for it? Everything was for the main character. This was the so-called concept of luck. Mysterious and unfathomable, but it was not the setting of the lousy author. The reason why the fire tribe was here was indeed to wait for the destined ones to appear. However, this was not all because of loyalty, but because the ancient emperor had already made arrangements. When the fire was here, the tribe was here. When the fire was extinguished, the tribe was gone. Young master! Seeing the two figures coming out from the depths of the ancient temple, Shui Yu-er's face suddenly revealed a trace of shyness. However, just as she was about to walk towards Ling Xiao, Bai Ling stood in front of her. You! Stay away from my brother. Your brother? Shui Yu almost said, isn't he dead? However, at this moment, a faint light flashed in her eyes, and she immediately retreated to the side. Let's go. There's still a good show waiting for me to start. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, kicked open the door, and walked out with Bai Ling. As for the barrier on the door, F***CK. I didn't come in from here at all. The dome of the main hall was overturned, and I fell directly. Isn't that good? 1. The originally noisy fire tribe suddenly became silent for a moment. Everyone looked at the figure that walked out of the ancient temple, and their eyes were filled with shock and awe. Immediately, Yi Shen, Xing Shen, and Hua Heng, the three great god emperors, bowed at the same time. Greetings, young master. Greetings, master. Greetings, new emperor. Yi Shen and Xing Shen were stunned, and they turned to look at Hua Heng, who was also in a daze. F***CK. Did this bastard think that he could save his life by surrendering? Chapter 3:15. Get up. To Yi Shen and Xing Shen's surprise, Ling Xiao didn't seem surprised at all. He just glanced at Hua Heng indifferently. It can't be, young lord, after fighting for such a long time, they were all on the same side? You should have at least said something. Fortunately, Hua Heng had a lot of tricks up his sleeves and wasn't beaten to death by the two of them. Otherwise, is the banquet going to start again tonight? Brother, they are all your men? Yes. Ling you can play by yourself for a while. I have something to do. When I'm done, I'll come back to find you. Ling Xiao turned his head to look at Shui Yu, and the latter immediately understood what he meant and flew away. That night ginseng stew 1. Tonight, I'm going to entertain my guests. Ling Zhao's lips suddenly curled into a sinister smile, scaring Yi Shen and the others. Qingyun, I've prepared the flood dragon meat. Tonight, let's cultivate properly, okay? Yes. Young lord. Yi Shen bowed with a pious expression. Those who are worthy of young lord stewing the flood dragon must be very important guests. It seems like I have to spend some effort to study the dishes later. Brother, where are you going? I want to go too. Bai Ling grabbed Ling Zhao's arm, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. What he wanted to do was to completely capture Nian Qingyun's heart. If he brought a little beauty with him now, wouldn't he be making a fool of himself? Ling be good. Brother is going to send a good brother to the afterlife. I'll be back soon. Let me tell you, the flood dragon meat is very delicious. What flavor do you want to eat? Tell Yi Shen. I might be back before it's ready. Ling Xiao bent down and rubbed Bai Ling's little head. Brother? Alright, flood dragon meat? I really haven't eaten it before. Brother, you have to come back soon. Which one is Yishin? Quick, bring me to catch the flood dragon. Bai Ling skipped towards the crowd, whereas Yishin's old face instantly froze, and he immediately took a step forward and said with an embarrassed smile, Hee, eldest young miss, there's no need to catch flood dragons to eat. We'll just stew any of them that you find pleasing to the eye. What do you mean by this? Bai Ling was clearly stunned. Then, she stared dumbfoundedly at the group of Flood Dragon clan experts in front of her who had suddenly revealed their true forms and were looking at her with terrified expressions. On the other side, Ling Xiao left the fire race and stood on top of a giant tree, looking at the golden light that covered the sky in the distance. Beside him, Shui Yu-er's expression was humble, but there was some doubt between her brows. Why was young master still so calm when he knew that Nian Qingyun was in trouble? You know what to do later, right? Ling Xiao looked deeply into Shui Yu-er's eyes. The latter's body trembled and she nodded firmly. With young master's strength, he could clearly kill Xia Chen easily. Why did he have to make it so flashy? Wouldn't it be better to kill him with one palm strike? Of course, even if Shui Yu-er racked her brains, she probably would not be able to figure out what it meant to plunder Providence. In the valley, Xia Chen's battle saber slashed down and shattered the thousands of afterimages that Nian Qingyun had transformed into. Then, he sneered at the goddess of the Dao Palace who was not far away, whose pretty face had already turned pale. As expected of the chaotic spiritual divine body. Even though her cultivation level had dropped, she had still fought with him for an entire day. If it were not for the suppression of the Dao artifact, he might not have been able to capture her. However, as a human, there would be a moment when her spiritual energy would be exhausted. At this moment, the Dao principles around Nian Qingyun were scattered. It was obvious that she was an arrow at the end of its flight. At the thought of being able to taste the beauty of this goddess later, a hint of greed flashed across Xia Chen's eyes. Goddess Nian, we have been fighting for an entire day. Why don't you just give in to me? Xia Chen put away his saber and sneered. Don't even think about it. Even if I die, I will not let you have your way. Nian Qingyun's eyes turned cold. Finally, this moment had come? She had already seen this ending on the faceless jade wall. This secret realm was filled with fog to her. The wall said that she would dissipate here and become a new self. In Nian Qingyun's opinion, she was most likely going to die here. However, she did not believe that a mere illusory realm could determine her life and death. But now, it seemed perhaps this was all fate? Ling Xiao, in the end, you've given up on me. Ha! Nian Qingyun, isn't this what you want? The great Tao is heartless. But in the end, the heartless one is someone else. You are just pretending to be heartless, pitiful and laughable. You want him to leave, but you also want him to come. You don't want to see him, but you miss him. Humph. You are about to die, yet you still dare to be so stubborn. Fine, I will now have a taste of how stubborn your mouth is. Xia Chen's eyes were filled with disdain. However, just as he rushed out and was about to pounce on Nian Qingyun, a cold voice suddenly came from above his head. Today, I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Upon hearing the voice, not only Xia Chen, but also Nian Qingyun's pretty face showed a trace of dullness. When they looked up, they saw a white-clothed figure descending from the sky and standing quietly on the spiritual screen of the Dao artifact. His face was extremely cold. Ling Xiao, the corners of Nian Qingyun's mouth trembled slightly, but it eventually turned into a sincere smile. In the end, he still came, when she was at her most desperate. Ling Xiao. Xia Chen's face turned slightly serious, and a trace of fear instantly surged in his eyes. How could this be? He had clearly sealed this valley with a Dao artifact, and not a trace of aura was released. How did Ling Xiao find this place? Could it be a coincidence? However, before he could ponder for too long, an ancient sword suddenly appeared in Xia Chen's hand, and he slashed at the golden spiritual screen. Boom! The sound of fear shook heaven and earth. However, Xia Chen's Dao Bell was also a high-grade Dao artifact, and its power was monstrous. Therefore, the sword didn't manage to shatter the spiritual screen. Ha 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 ha! Ling Xiao, aren't you very arrogant? You came at the right time. Today, in front of you, I will take your sweetheart. Hee. The panic on Xia Chen's face disappeared in a flash, and then he looked at Nian Qingyun gloomily. There was even a trace of undetectable bloody light in the depths of his eyes. Bitch! Didn't you always look down on me? Now I'll let you know who your destiny is. Xia Chen, if you dare to touch her, I will make sure you don't enter the reincarnation cycle. Ling Xiao roared, and there was panic in his eyes. However, Nian Qingyun smiled sadly and sighed helplessly in her heart. She looked up at the white-clothed figure who was constantly waving his sword and suddenly said, Ling Xiao, I am very happy that you can come. We are not fated in this life, but in the next life. I am willing to stay by your side. It was clearly words of love, but when they came out of Nian Qingyun's mouth, it was somewhat cold. Even so, Ling Xiao still had a trace of surprise on his face. This woman is finally enlightened. At this moment, Nian Qingyun's pretty face was slightly red, but her eyes were surging with bitterness. After all, she was in a situation where she was bound to die. The heartless great Tao and the teachings of her master were meaningless. Nian Qingyun really wanted to tell the young man above her that she had always loved him in her heart. This feeling was very strange, and it made her hesitant heart have an indescribable carefree feeling. The destined woman's love has become obsession, and her Tao heart has been reconstructed. Congratulations to the host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. As expected, this person will only let go of all worries when they are about to die. Qingyun, what nonsense are you talking about? There is no need for the next life. In this life, I want you to be by my side forever. In midair, Ling Xiao shouted sternly, and the Tao laws around him appeared. He slashed out again and landed on the ancient bell. Buzz! It was like a yellow bell that resounded from the 9 heavens. The spiritual curtain that shrouded the valley suddenly shook for a moment, and then it returned to normal. Ha 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 ha! What a pair of lovebirds! Unfortunately, after today they will be separated forever. Oh, I won't kill you. Nian Qingyun, you don't have to be afraid. I will make you feel very comfortable, and then later, I will let you see how he dies with your own eyes. Xia Chen smiled sinisterly and finally stopped hesitating. His figure flashed and instantly pounced on Nian Qingyun. Xia Chen, how dare you? At this moment, a trace of playfulness flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. The 3 types of Tao laws around him suddenly flourished, and directly transformed into a giant sword that was thousands of feet long. It slashed toward the ancient bell again. The time was almost ripe. At this moment, Nian Qingyun was clearly in complete despair. And what he wanted to do, sister, don't be afraid. There is no danger that I can't solve with 1 sword. If there is, then 2 swords. Chapter 316. Ling Xiao, I'm sorry. I've always pretended not to care, but I have already fallen in love with you. Nian Qingyun sighed softly. There seemed to be determination in her eyes. Let me take another look at you. Just 1 look. Treat it as our attachment to the path of immortality. Ling Xiao, I once used your tone to talk about deep feelings in my dreams. I was willing to exchange my Tao arts for floating. In that dream, I woke up laughing and crying. Only then did I understand. You are the leftover warmth in the cold night that makes one greedy. You are the spring scar that flows in my heart in the barren land. You are also the tribulation that I won't go through in my life. If life and death are only in an instant, even if time passes, time will pass. I'm only willing to be your loyal subject. Crack! Just as Nian Qingyun slowly closed her eyes, a strange golden light lit up in her soul sea. Suddenly, there was a crisp, shattering sound in midair. Huh! Xia Chen's footsteps suddenly stopped. Nian Qingyun also looked up in surprise. She saw countless cracks appearing on the originally indestructible golden spiritual screen. It spread like a spider web and was as dazzling as fireworks. Boom! Golden rays of light suddenly sprinkled down from the sky, one after another, fluttering in the air like butterflies, extremely beautiful. Nian Qingyun covered her red lips. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She raised her head just like that, watching the graceful figure descend from the sky and land beside her. His pitch-black eyes were filled with unspeakable affection. "Qingyun, I'm here." Boom! With just a few words, all of Nian Qingyun's pretense of being reserved had been shattered. Finally, she didn't want to consider anyone's feelings anymore. There was no other path of immortality. What was the point of immortality? Nian Qingyun smiled and cried. She pressed her body tightly into Ling Zhao's arms. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the 3,000 great daos couldn't compare to the warm sun on this young man's face. It doesn't matter if he's heartless or affectionate. Forget it. I just want to wake up every day and see his smiling face. That's enough. Master, I'm sorry. I won't go through this tribulation anymore. Don't be afraid. With me here, no one can hurt you. Ling Zhao's laughter was gentle as he gently patted the shoulder of the young girl in his arms. Finally, they could officially dual cultivate. Other than adding points to the system, Ling Zhao seemed to have suddenly found the motivation to cultivate. I'm not greedy for the mysteries of dual cultivation, I just want to work hard to increase my strength. Yes. Nian Qingyun nodded gently and closed her eyes to feel the warmth in his arms. Ling Zhao, shall we get married? So sudden? Before the smile on Ling Zhao's face disappeared, it completely froze. F***ck. It wasn't easy for me to break off the engagement, and you want to get married again? If I get married, how can I play happily with the other girls? I just want to watch the sunrise in the morning and admire the crescent moon in the evening with you, never to be apart again. With Nian Qingyun's temperament, she began to speak sweet nothings at this time. Ling Zhao simply shook his head and said in a gentle voice, "Qingyun, the current me is not worthy of you. When I become emperor, I want the entire Xingzhou to celebrate our wedding." Beep, the chosen one's will has been shaken and is on the verge of turning into a demon. Congratulations to the host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. Hearing the melodious voice from the system, Ling Zhao discreetly glanced at Xia Chen, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. There are still 600 luck points left. Work harder, my little leek. You too, do you think I'm heir? Xia Chen looked at the two people who were being intimate with each other not far away with a vicious expression, and his eyes faintly flashed with scarlet. Once again, just when he was at his proudest moment, Ling Zhao appeared. I've already taken off my clothes, but the beauty is in your arms. F***ck. Xia Chen silently pulled up his pants and raised his head to look at the Dao bell that Ling Zhao had shattered. An inexplicable sense of uneasiness arose in his heart. A Dao artifact. 3 swords and he shattered a Dao artifact? Is Ling Zhao's strength really so tyrannical? Be careful. This Xia Chen is a little strange. Nian Qingyun lay in Ling Zhao's arms, her beautiful face a little pale. Little fool, don't you know your man's title? In the younger generation, I'm invincible. Ling Zhao lowered his head and placed his forehead on Nian Qingyun's forehead, gently rubbing it for a moment. Then, when Nian Qingyun's face gradually turned red, he suddenly kissed her lips with a deep gaze. The gauze rustled, and it felt a little rough. However, that warm touch caused Nian Qingyun's delicate body to tremble for no reason. Although the two of them had already had a deeper conversation, but this kiss was the first time that they were completely immersed in and completely opened up to each other. And, gradually, Nian Qingyun's eyes began to blur, and the paleness on her face was completely replaced by a blush. You. Xia Chen stood in the distance, his face already lifeless and ferocious. Especially when Yan Qingyun took the initiative, it made him feel an indescribable humiliation. Damn slut. Damn Ling Xiao. You, however, just as Xia Chen's eyes gradually turned red, a hurried sound suddenly came from the distant sky. Saint. N. Xia Chen's expression turned cold, and he turned his head to look at the sky. Shui Yu hurriedly descended from the sky and landed beside him. Then, she looked at Ling Xiao with some vigilance. Saint. Lin she was killed. What? Xia Chen's eyes flashed with a touch of gloominess. So, when he entered the secret realm this time, not only did he not manage to deal with Nian Qingyun, but also Lin Shi, this leek, was harvested? Who did it? Ling Zhao's sister. Damn. Ling Xiao again. Xia Chen took a deep breath, and there was a faint flicker of light in the depths of his eyes, which looked incomparably evil. I'll kill Ling Xiao later, and you capture Nian Qingyun. At this time, Nian Qingyun had already exhausted all her spiritual energy, and was not worth mentioning. As for Ling Xiao, from the moment he entered the secret realm, he was already a dead man. The magic of the soul-sucking ghost pearl, not to mention a young man with a powdery face, even an emperor god expert would find it difficult to resist. Ling Xiao? Blame it on your woman for being too fragrant. Ling Xiao, be careful. That Xia Chen's aura is very strange. It seems to be able to suppress the divine soul. Nian Qingyun reluctantly broke away from Ling Xiao's embrace, and the expression on her face became dignified again. At this time, she was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and there was nothing she could do to help Ling Xiao. As for that Xia Chen, he seemed to be hiding some trump cards, and he was extremely calm. You're still calling me Ling Xiao. Isn't it time to change the way you address me? Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, and his eyes were calm and gentle. Nian Qingyun was stunned for a moment, and then she lowered her head shyly. What time is it now? You still have the mood to joke. Wife, you stabbed me with your sword that day at Enlightenment Mountain. After we deal with this Xia Chen, shouldn't you compensate me well? Ling Xiao seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and Nian Qingyun's pretty face blushed even more. Although she knew that with Ling Xiao's strength, that injury was nothing much, Ling Xiao was still able to deal with it. She still felt a little guilty in her heart. In a very soft voice, Nian Qingyun softly said, Wife, how do you want to compensate me? Ling Xiao grinned, and a trace of evil flashed across his eyes. How else can I compensate you? Aren't you just thinking of, Nian Qingyun glared at Ling Xiao in embarrassment, and she reached out to pinch his arm. It seems that my wife understands me. Ah, I can't take it any more. You do it? Today. Only then did Xia Chen know. It turned out that his nature was that of a pickled fish. Sour again. Vegetable again. Superfluous again. Xia Chen looked up to the sky and shouted. However, just as he raised his leg and was about to pounce on Ling Xiao and Nian Qingyun, suddenly, he felt an intense pain in his back. That's right, that part commonly known as the kidney. Chapter 317. Xia Chen's ferocious face instantly turned dull. Am I weak? Or was I too high with Shui Yu? But what's with the smell of blood? Not far away, Nian Qingyun also looked at the woman behind Xia Chen in surprise. Then, she suddenly thought of something and turned to stare at Ling Xiao gloomily. Wife, it's none of my business. Nian Qingyun snorted. I'll deal with you tonight. Shui Yu, what are you doing? That was until Xia Chen turned his head in a daze and saw the dagger stuck in his waist. Suddenly, there was an inconceivable panic in the depths of his eyes. It's too similar. Back then, Emperor God Qin Yang failed to snatch his ghost pearl and fell out with him. Just when they were about to fight to the death, Qi Luo appeared. She walked to his side, her eyes filled with deep concern. Then, she stabbed a knife into his heart. Xia Chen was at a loss and even confused. Why? Why did the woman I love stab me in the heart? Such a similar scene. It's exactly the same. However, the woman who stabbed him was not the one he loved. She was just an ant in his eyes. But even such an ant had betrayed him. But why? Could it be hatred born from love? Shui Yuer saw that I was interested in Yen Qingyun, so she stabbed my waist on purpose? No matter what, bitch. How dare you betray me? The chosen one feels despair, confusion, pain, and other complicated emotions. Congratulations to the host for plundering 100 luck points and 1,000 villain points. What was the biggest scar in the heart of a person who was betrayed by a woman? Of course, it was the woman who betrayed him. The best way to make him feel pain, anger, and despair was to let him experience the same pain again. In other words, he wanted him to experience the past that he didn't want to remember. Shui Yuer smiled sweetly. Her figure instantly retreated dozens of feet away. Holy Sun Xia, I'm sorry, but I feel that young Master Ling Xiao is the destined one. Only by following him can I preserve my life. Moreover, young Master said that as long as I kill you, he will give me a peerless divine artifact. What? You? Xia Chen's eyes instantly turned red. His heart began to tremble and shatter. The aura around his body gradually became chaotic and violent. In the end, it even carried a trace of indescribable evil. Was his life getting cheaper and cheaper? But now, it was only worth a peerless divine artifact? But, although the knife had pierced his waist, it was not enough to kill him. With Shui Yuer's cultivation, how could she not see this? Was she trying to humiliate me on purpose? Beep, the child of destiny's Tao heart is on the verge of collapse. Congratulations to host for plundering 200 luck points and 2,000 villain points. Good. Ling Xiao, Shui Yuer, I will not let you off today. Xia Chen took a deep breath and tried to suppress the resentment in his heart. Qi Luo's betrayal had already broken his heart. He just didn't expect. It turned out that all women in the world were the same. The feeling of rubbing salt on the wound was very painful, very good, and very exciting. Xia Chen lowered his head and laughed softly. However, the moment he lifted his head, a strange blood-black spiritual light suddenly shot up into the sky from his body. It faintly transformed into a white bone shadow in midair. Ling Xiao had never seen such a gloomy power filled with death intent before. But inexplicably, he felt a little scared. Beep, the child of destiny has merged with the evil treasure and fallen into the ghost Tao. Congratulations to host for plundering 200 luck points and 2,000 villain points. Heaven and earth trembled and the mountains and rivers shattered. At this time, Xia Chen's cultivation had directly entered the late stage of Paoang. He was only one step away from becoming a divine general. Originally, he was a little afraid of the evil treasure of the Ghost Clan. Or it could be said that he was still a decent person in his heart. He had an instinctive hatred for the evil races like the Ghost Clan. Therefore, even though he had obtained the treasure of the Ghost Clan, he had not merged with it. He had only placed it in his sea of soul as a defense. But today? No. But after being repeatedly humiliated by Ling Xiao in the past few days, his temperament had unknowingly changed. Especially when he unintentionally used the soul-sucking ghost pearl on the Enlightenment Mountain and devoured the power of Xiao Tu's divine soul. In fact, he had been corrupted by the ghost qi within the pearl. In the past, Xia Chen was a god-emperor of the upper realm who had comprehended the slaughtered Tao law. No matter whether it was his Tao heart or divine soul, they were incomparable to ordinary people. But now, he was just a Paoang cultivator. How could he suppress the power of the evil pearl? Unknowingly, his temperament had been affected. But Xia Chen himself was unaware of it. From this moment on, the name of Sha Di became a thing of the past. Although Xia Chen yearned to kill, He could no longer maintain his original heart. A true expert would practice killing, but he would not sink into sin. But now Xia Chen only wanted to kill all the living things in this world, not to prove his Tao, but to vent the endless resentment in his heart. Husband. Xia Chen's aura is a little strange. Nian Qingyun's jade-like hand unconsciously grabbed Ling Zhao's arm. It was unknown when this cold and arrogant goddess of the Tao Palace seemed to have changed. It was as if, wherever Ling Xiao was, she could finally put down all her defenses and worries. As long as she stood behind him, there was nothing in this world that could be called a tribulation. He would resist all the wind and rain. It was a very inexplicable feeling, but it was really reassuring. My wife, the great Tao is emotionless. It depends on one's understanding, but you must believe that evil will never prevail over good. Ling Xiao reached out and gently pinched Nian Qingyun's delicate nose. Go back and wait for me. Today I will kill this evil for the world. Okay. Nian Qingyun nodded obediently. This was something that would never happen in the past. She had always been a proud and stubborn woman. She was never willing to stand behind anyone. But in front of Ling Xiao, she was willing to be the woman behind him. Watch him conquer. Watch him display his might. Watch him command the wind and clouds, rule the world, and crush all enemies in the world. As for her, as long as she followed in his footsteps and did not fall too far behind, it would be fine. Ling Xiao, today I will use your life as a sacrifice for my rebirth. Xia Chen's voice was inexplicably gloomy. Even his face had become a little gray and pale. There seemed to be a ghostly fire dancing in his eyes, flickering with a frightening dark light. Around him, an illusory ghostly figure loomed, surrounded by a monstrous murderous aura. At this moment, Xia Chen really had the power of a ghost demon. You were reborn again? Aren't you tired? Holy Sun Xia, why don't I send you through a proper reincarnation and experience a true rebirth? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. There was no trace of fear on his face. He had already seen the Ghost Clan's supreme treasure. Therefore, he knew almost all of Xia Chen's method. Did he want to kill him with an evil treasure that could absorb divine souls? Childish. Not to mention that there was an ancient supreme treasure in Ling Zhao's soul sea, an innate spiritual item. Even with the current level of Ling Zhao's divine soul, the current Xia Chen would not be able to absorb it just because he wanted to. Otherwise, this evil treasure would break the balance of cultivation and affect the plot. Arrogant and ignorant. Xia Chen's face was ferocious. Finally, he did not hesitate anymore. The golden saber in his hand slashed down towards Ling Zhao's head. Buzz. At this moment, a terrifying ghostly aura surged into the sky. The saber intent was dazzling and instantly tore through space. It was as if the Milky Way had fallen to the ground and turned the world upside down. Arrogance requires capital. Holy Sun Xia, the word ignorant is the most appropriate word to describe you. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and formed a seal with one hand. All of a sudden, the space before him began to crumble apart. At the same time, an extremely hot aura quietly filled the entire valley. Chapter 3:18. This is the spiritual fire of heaven and earth. It's the aura of the spiritual fire. Xia Chen's face turned gloomy. Obviously, Ling Xiao had just obtained this spiritual fire. Because he did not feel any aura of the spiritual fire from Ling Xiao. If his guess was right, this spirit fire was actually the greatest creation in this mystic realm. It was also the reason why Lin Shi came in. Originally, he wanted to subdue Nian Qingyun and then kill his little brother. With the beauty and the spiritual treasure in his hands, this trip would be complete. Unexpectedly, he had already planned everything out, but in the end it all ended up benefiting that bastard Ling Xiao. All of a sudden, he felt that Xue Yuer was not acting when she scolded him. Damn! I have lived for hundreds of years. How could I be played by a kid? Xia Chen, you have done many unjust things. Today, I will punish you on behalf of the heavens and send you back to reincarnation." Ling Xiao shouted coldly, and the seal in his hands changed. The monstrous flame suddenly turned into a lotus shadow. The Tao pattern on it flickered and contained the true meaning of destruction. This world annihilation fire lotus was the most classic move in the burning scripture. As more spiritual fires were fused, the color of the fire lotus would change and its power would become more terrifying. However, Ling Xiao did not intend to fuse with the spiritual fire for the time being. He was not at all interested in the pain experienced by the Chosen One. It was enough to have one spiritual fire of heaven and earth. "I am not walking on anyone's path. There is no need to force it. Or damn, I'm not the Chosen One, and I can't find the spiritual fire. Once Lin Shi dies, who knows if there are other leaks like him? Why should I waste my time on such a cultivation method that can't be cultivated to the end?" As for why Ling Xiao did not use his strongest move to kill Xia Chen, it was because it was too easy. Who would be moved? Nian Qingyun finally stopped hiding her love for him. Of course, she would take the opportunity to strengthen their relationship. Besides, the system's final notification had not come yet. The saber intent swept out like a white bone dragon, revealing an indestructible sharpness. "Today, no matter how many tricks you have up your sleeve, you will still die for sure. My name, Xia Chen, has already resounded throughout the 9 heavens. How can a tiny ant like you block my path to immortality?" After a brief moment of shock, Xia Chen's face regained its calmness. Above his head, the vast blade light finally shattered the void and collided with the fire lotus. Instantly, the world dimmed and the sun and moon sank. An incomparably terrifying aura suddenly swept out from the valley, shattering the surrounding barren mountains and ancient forests. Blinding flames fell from the sky like fireworks. Wherever it landed, the earth was pitch black and the trees were all burned. On the other hand, Xia Chen's blade light crushed the void and destroyed the spiritual flames as it descended towards Ling Xiao's head. "Ha ha ha ha! Ling Xiao, aren't you very strong? Let's see what other methods you have to stop me." Xia Chen threw his head back and laughed, his eyes filled with mockery. In front of him, Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He gently raised his hand and then slammed it down. Above the blade light, a thunder sun appeared out of nowhere, intimidating the heavens. Then, under Xia Chen's dumbfounded gaze, the saber-intent bone dragon was directly crushed, and it finally fell into the valley. Boom! The earth seemed to have cracked open, and a 1,000-foot-long abyss appeared between Ling Xiao and Xia Chen. Silence filled the entire world, and Xia Chen's face gradually revealed a look of intense disbelief. How was this possible? How could he shatter his saber intent of Tao law so easily? "Xia Chen, even if you are a reincarnated God Emperor, you are still as weak as an ant in my eyes." Ling Xiao rose into the air, and stood in the void like a god who judged sins. He was cold and arrogant, without a trace of emotion. "If I want to kill you, one slash is enough." Arrogant! Xia Chen gritted his teeth. The battle blade in his hand began to shine with a golden light, and a faint ghostly howl could be heard. It was eerie and sacred. Suddenly, his face turned grave and dull, and then a look of intense shock appeared on his face. At this moment, a pitch-black ancient saber suddenly appeared in Ling Xiao's hand. Then, he gently slashed at Xia Chen. There seemed to be an illusory figure standing in the void behind him. His expression was indifferent, but the profoundness in his eyes made people feel as if they could see. Reincarnation, destruction, absolute beginning, and the great path. At this moment, Xia Chen seemed to see the end of the universe, the beginning of heaven and earth. "No!" Xia Chen's voice was filled with terror. No matter how confident he was, he still felt a strong sense of death and despair when facing this saber strike. "I don't believe it. I am a dignified god-slayer, And I can't even kill Qin Yang and Qi Luo. What can you, a mere ant, do to me? Boom! Ghostly Qi began to swirl around Xiachen. The originally illusory ghostly figure suddenly solidified and expanded. A vertical eye suddenly opened on his face, and a blood-red evil bead emitted endless evil. Xiachen's face suddenly turned pale, and even his skin became strangely dry. Blood sacrifice technique? This ghost clan's supreme treasure is indeed evil. Ling Zhao's eyes were filled with amusement. He watched as the vertical eye of the ghostly figure shot out a beam of blood-red light and collided with the primordial demonic blade. As expected, these children of destiny used the same trick. It seemed that they were not willing to use their trump cards until the very end. Crack! Xiachen's figure was almost instantly sent flying. Ling Xiao only looked at the ghostly figure behind him with interest. In the next moment, one of the ghostly figure's arms suddenly fell to the ground, turned into endless ghostly qi, and dissipated. Ah! At the same time, Xiachen suddenly screamed. One of his arms also fell to the ground. How is this possible? How is this possible? Xiachen's head was instantly covered in cold sweat. He even looked at Ling Xiao with a trace of fear in his eyes. The soul-sucking ghost pearl was his greatest reliance. However, even though he used the power of blood sacrifice to activate its power, he was still severely injured by Ling Zhao's slash. Beat. The child of destiny's mind has collapsed. His providence has been reset to 0. Kill him now and you will receive an additional reward. Here it comes. Ling Zhao's lips curled into a sinister smile. Finally, the Tao heart of this god-emperor who had returned through possession was shattered by him. Children of destiny like this had always been arrogant. After all, in his previous life, he was indeed boundless. Now that he was reborn in this lower realm, how could he look down on a native like Ling Xiao? What a pity! He probably would not have thought that this native Ling Xiao came from the world that created them. I have a brush that can write mountains, rivers, sun, moon, demons, ghosts, gods, and demons. I have a key that can draw the heavenly Tao, the universe, and thousands of races. I say that the heavenly Tao no longer exists, and there are no more saints in this world. I say that there is no Buddha in this world, and all of you have fallen to become demons. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, his white robe wild. He looked at Xiachen with a calm and indifferent gaze, with a hint of mockery. Now I sentence you not to reincarnate. Buzz. The 7 Tao laws began to form a river of stars from the void. The sound of Tao could be heard for thousands of miles, and immortal clouds covered the horizon. No. Impossible. How is this possible? No. I am not resigned to this. Ling Xiao. Even if I die, I want you to die with me. Xiachen's face turned from blank to shocked, and finally turned into a mournful resentment. Then, his physical body began to shatter, and his Tao laws began to burn. The vertical eye of the ghostly figure standing behind him suddenly released a wisp of extreme eeriness. Chapter 319. This aura, Ling Xiao frowned slightly. Finally, he stopped hesitating and pressed his palm down. 7 Tao laws gathered in one palm, and heaven and earth collapsed instantly. However, although Xiachen was surprised, there was no trace of panic on his face. I set up this curse with my blood and soul. Wherever I look, all living beings will perish, their souls will scatter, and their names will be erased from heaven and earth. An ancient chant slowly sounded from Xiachen's mouth. In the ghostly shadow's vertical pupils, a wisp of bloody light seemed to be gathered from the blood of all living beings and turned into a strange curse seal. Countless mournful and desperate voices of resentful spirits inexplicably rang in Ling Zhao's ears. What a vicious sorcery! Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly. The lightning outside his body rushed into the sky like an ancient thunder god, trying to suppress this sorcery. Seeing this, Xia Chen's face became more resentful, and there was even a hint of mockery. It's useless, Ling Xiao. This pearl devours the souls of billions of living beings and is ignited with my blood essence. How can you resist it? Despair and fear. Ha 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 ha, I will sleep, but you will be destroyed. Heaven and earth suddenly darkened, and a bloody light covered the sky. Countless cracks appeared in the void instantly. Thousands of ghostly patterns evolved into a cage, completely sealing Ling Xiao's figure. Ling Xiao. In the valley, Nian Qingyun looked at the evil runes in the ghostly shadow's vertical pupils in horror, and a touch of confusion suddenly appeared on her pretty face. She seemed to be familiar with this fluctuation, but it was clearly her first time seeing it. Nian Qingyun had a premonition that Ling Xiao could not resist this evil curse. However, just as she rose into the air, and was about to block in front of Ling Xiao, a golden light suddenly began to spread in the depths of her eyes. Ghost Clan. Soul-sucking ghost pearl. Crack. Suddenly, there seemed to be a strange sound in Nian Qingyun's soul sea, and a majestic memory instantly surged in. Then, the aura on her body inexplicably became ethereal and empty. Ling Xiao. Die. Xia Chen roared and laughed wildly. There was an indescribable joy in his red eyes. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that his new life would come to an end so quickly. But before that, being able to personally witness Ling Xiao being devoured by tens of thousands of souls and unable to return to the cycle of reincarnation, this feeling was truly wonderful. Following Xia Chen's shout, a strand of scarlet light suddenly blossomed from that ghostly figure's vertical eye. At first, it was just a wisp, but it instantly covered the sky. The evil contained within it made even Ling Xiao feel a strong sense of unease. The blue sky collapsed, turning into the color of blood. Wherever the bloody light passed, there seemed to be countless ghosts and devils appearing, chanting evil scriptures. As expected of a god-emperor's possession, as expected of the ghost clan's most precious treasure, this soul curse was probably not something that the current Ling Xiao could resist. Wunyi, however, how could his life be lost here? I have tens of thousands of demons, I can sacrifice my life at any time. How could a mere attack stop me from ascending to the 9 heavens? The glazed ancient pagoda emitted a dim light, and a golden Buddha figure gradually bloomed in the sky. Right at this moment, a fair and jade-like hand suddenly pierced through the void and gently pulled him behind her. Ghost Clan, you're courting death. A strange coldness flashed in Nian Qingyun's eyes, and her body emitted an extreme golden light. Above her head, a golden palace gradually took shape. There seemed to be tens of thousands of immortal weapons, layers of divine wood, dragons and phoenixes soaring, and hundreds of rays of light. There was an indescribable and terrifying aura quietly rippling through heaven and earth. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, especially the majestic palace. It was as huge as a border, as if it was another universe, standing at the end of the void. At this moment, the mountains and rivers collapsed, the cycle of eras changed, and the void turned into a seal. All living things were as insignificant as ants. Nian Qingyun stood in the void like a celestial god of the 9 heavens, and there were tens of thousands of strange phenomena around her. Ling Xiao's heart trembled slightly, and he understood something. He seemed to understand why Nian Qingyun's providence was so terrifying. This divine watchtower was obviously not an item of this world. Nian Qingyun's aura also began to rise rapidly. Perhaps her identity was even more terrifying than Ling Xiao had imagined. Divine Lady of the upper world, training in the lower world, and her memories were sealed? Buzz. At this moment, a loud buzzing sound suddenly came from the sky above the mystic realm. Immediately, a spirit wheel with tens of thousands of flickering Tao patterns appeared out of thin air. It was enshrouded in divine mist, and spiritual light shone everywhere. In just an instant, that wisp of evil scarlet light disappeared into thin air. Xia Chen's figure also fell from the sky, and the ghost shadow outside his body shattered, and he no longer had any power. So, you're the one who ruined my plan. In the void thousands of miles away, a delicate voice that was filled with endless anger suddenly resounded. Ling Xiao raised his head, only to see a pair of eyes that were as cold as 10,000 years old ice staring fixedly at him. An illusory celestial figure slowly stepped out from the divine watchtower, and the Red Emperor's robe shone with divine light. Although he couldn't see her face clearly, she gave off a very familiar feeling. "I'll remember you." Then, the celestial figure waved her hand gently, and the Tao patterns in the heavens floated, and the divine sound of the great Tao resounded. A heavenly path extended from the top of her head, connecting the divine watchtower and this world. Nian Qingyun frowned slightly, and her face flashed with a touch of coldness. Finally, her gaze landed on Ling Xiao. "Ling Xiao, I'll let bygones be bygones, but you'd better not appear in front of me again." Buzz. Between heaven and earth, spiritual light shone brightly and turned into a divine sun. Nian Qingyun rose and stepped onto the divine path, walking step by step toward the golden watchtower. When her figure completely overlapped with the red figure and became one person, she turned her head and looked deeply at Ling Xiao. A celestial wind blew past, and her red robe fluttered in the wind, making her look enchanting. And that blurry face finally became clear at this moment. In the next moment, Ling Xiao suddenly felt a sharp pain in his left eye. Blood immediately flowed down, dyeing half of his face red. This pain came suddenly, and it pierced through his soul. It was indescribable. In front of the ancient forest, Xia Chen's body trembled slightly. He struggled to get up, and his eyes were filled with horror. Although it was only for a moment, he still recognized that celestial figure in red. No wonder he could meet a woman with the same constitution in this lower realm. So it's her. But how could she break through the realm barrier so easily? Could it be that she had already taken that step in the past few hundred years? Impossible. Xia Chen was disappointed, and his eyes flashed with hatred. When he saw Ling Xiao covering his eye and looking like he was in pain, he did not hesitate anymore and turned to escape in his soul form. Now that his physical body was shattered, and his soul was bloodied, he was no match for Ling Xiao. In fact, any eastern border prodigy could easily crush him to death. He could only find a place to stay in the Pearl temporarily. He hoped that the next fated person could pick him up. However, just as Xia Chen was about to step out of the valley, his footsteps suddenly stopped. At this moment, he seemed to see the world in front of him turn completely red. Above his head, a pitch-black Guyu stretched across the sky, emitting endless evil light. Gulp. Xia Chen suddenly felt a strong sense of uneasiness. This sense of uneasiness was not the fear of death, but the hesitation of seeing hell. He slowly turned around and looked at the figure that was descending from the sky. His eyes suddenly narrowed. At this moment, Ling Xiao's face had returned to its usual calmness. Blood coagulated on one side of his face, making him look indescribably evil. What made Xia Chen even more terrified was that the young man's eyes were actually revealing two different colors. One was as black as ink, and there was no trace of any other color. The other was extremely red, and in the middle was a black crescent moon. Chapter 320. Don't come over, no. I'll give you this bead, please spare my life. Xia Chen's body trembled. If not for the fact that he had lost his physical body, he would have wet his pants. Ling Xiao. I know that woman. I'm willing to acknowledge you as my big brother. No, I'm willing to be your slave. I have land in the western border. I'll give it all to you. Give me a chance, I can't die, I still want. Sink into pain. Ling Xiao's tone was indifferent, but it contained endless coldness. Xia Feng's clone was destined to be powerful. People who had been reborn in the upper realm were far superior to the natives of the Xingzhou continent in terms of temperament, means, and treasures. As for Nian Qingyun, it seemed that she was just a clone of the woman in red. Now that she had returned to her original body, it was just a part of the trial for her. However, her Taoist heart had been shattered, and her obsession with love was not something that could be easily erased. Although Nian Qingyun had awakened her original soul, her words were emotionless. But if she had really cut off her relationship with him, why would she suppress the evil light, and why would she look back at him at the last moment? Some things were more painful the more they were suppressed. Clone had more than 10,000 points of luck. How terrifying was the woman in red's original body? It turned out that the path to immortality was really vast and magnificent, and it was full of motivation. Buzz. A blank look suddenly appeared on Xia Chen's face. Then, he seemed to see a fear that he had never seen before, and his face instantly became twisted and ferocious. In his vision, Qin Yang and Qi Luo were entangled in death, tossing and turning. All the people he trusted were beheaded and lying under the two of them. Those heads that had died with everlasting regret caused Xia Chen to feel utterly disheartened, and guilt arose in his heart to the point tears flowed down his face. No! No! The killing was still going on, and the figures in his memory were beheaded one by one, falling into a pool of blood. Before they died, they looked at him with resentment and unwillingness. But there was nothing he could do. He could only watch helplessly. No! No! When his spirit dissipated and the world was dyed red, Xia Chen's aura finally disappeared completely from the world along with the illusion. Ling Xiao casually waved his hand and swept the soul that was about to dissipate into his knowledge sea. Beat. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the child of destiny. You have obtained a quarter of the realm seed, the supreme grade divine wings of tempest, and one divine grade formation-breaking talisman. Earlier, by coincidence, he'd actually accidentally opened up the Blood Moon Forbidden Zone, but it wasn't complete. Perhaps it was because he didn't have any feelings, so how could he be in pain? But why did the Blood Realm open? At this point, Ling Xiao had already figured everything out. Nian Qingyun was most likely the model of the incarnation of the Almighty. The red-robed woman originally wanted to use the body of reincarnation to temper the Tao laws and comprehend the true meaning of the great Tao. Unexpectedly, Nian Qingyun's flawless Tao heart had actually been shattered by him, and she had fallen in love with him. In this way, not only was this training meaningless, it even affected her Tao heart. Moreover, even if it was just a wisp of her soul, it was still the manifestation of her true soul. If it did not fuse, it would be incomplete. Fusion would cause demonic miasma in the heart. Right now, this fairy of the ninth heaven must be feeling extremely conflicted. Boom! At the end of heaven and earth, in a magnificent ancient palace, spirit fog curled up like the rolling sea. At this moment, in the depths of the palace, a furious roar suddenly sounded. Damned ant! How dare you spoil my grand plan! A beautiful red-robed woman with a golden face was sitting in the ancient palace, and her eyes were as cold as ice, emitting endless killing intent. In front of her, Nian Qingyun stood calmly in front of the palace, and there was no trace of panic or surprise in her eyes. Look at what you've done! You? We are of the same body and origin, so how can there be a difference between you and me? Nian Qingyun's voice was cold, and her eyes were indifferent. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking? You're just a mere soul incarnation. Wait until I refine your obsession, then I'll kill that demon with my own hand. Let's see how he can mess with my Tao heart. In the end, the red-robed woman waved her hand lightly, and Nian Qingyun suddenly turned into a wisp of clear light and merged into the top of her head. In the next moment, a terrifying wave of energy rippled out quietly. Outside the palace, all the experts in armor instantly prostrated themselves on the ground, and their eyes were filled with reverence. She had planned for 500 years and created 9 incarnations, but in the end she still failed. Although this incarnation had comprehended the ethereal Tao law and awakened the chaotic spiritual divine body, it still couldn't complete her chaos great Tao. All her efforts were in vain. All her efforts were in vain. She had no time to arrange a new reincarnation trial. Damn it. If you ascend to this world one day, I'll skin you, pull out your tendons, extract your divine soul, and refine you with heavenly fire for 100 years to vent my hatred. Blurg. Inexplicably, the red-robed woman's face suddenly turned pale, and even the resentment in her heart quietly dissipated. A blurry face appeared in front of her. Although she couldn't see it clearly, she felt inexplicably warm. How could it be? Heavenly Sword, Immortal Sect. Suddenly, a sword light tore through the sky, and an extremely cold aura covered thousands of miles in the sky. The originally celestial ancient sect suddenly felt as if winter was coming. Even the lush ancient trees and spiritual herbs were frozen and withered at this moment. Duan Wuyong, the master of Heavenly Sword Immortal, suddenly opened his eyes and disappeared in a flash. At the same time, many powerful and ancient auras walked out of caves and ancient palaces and looked toward the Heavenly Sword Peak. There, a beautiful figure in green stood with her hands clasped behind her back, coldly looking at the sky in the distance. Although her appearance was beautiful and she looked young, the aura emitted from her body faintly contained an aura of the vicissitudes of time. Who are you? Duan Wuyong landed from the sky and looked at the girl in front of him warily. At this moment, the master of Heavenly Sword Immortal could feel the aura of two Tao laws from her. Sword and extreme eyes. This kind of Tao law that transcended the 5 elements was terrifying. It was as if she could freeze the world with a glance if she wanted to. But her aura was only at the late stage of Paoang. Late stage of Paoang? She broke through again. A 16-year-old at the late stage of Paoang was a monster in the Xingzhou state. But this level of monster seemed to be a little too much. How long had she been cultivating? In 3 months, she broke through from the Soul Sea realm to the late stage of Paoang. She was only 1 step away from becoming a divine general. She had comprehended 2 Tao laws, and one of them was the extremely mysterious Tao law of extreme eyes. Master, what are you talking about? Hearing the voice behind her, Yi Qingchan's eyes seemed to flicker with an icy blue light, and a sweet smile suddenly appeared on her pretty face. Qingchan, what happened to you just now? Duan Wuyong's eyes narrowed. He had set up a trap in Yi Qingchan's soul sea to prevent her divine soul from being forcefully possessed by demons. This was also the protection that all the ancient sects in the Xingzhou would give their disciples. Now, this trap had not been broken, which meant Yi Qingchan had not been possessed. But her aura was obviously old and terrifying. Could it be a reincarnator? Just now? Yes, Master, I have mastered the Tao law of extreme eyes. I was about to tell you. Yi Qingchan's eyes flashed with confusion, and Duan Wuyong's expression finally softened. No matter what kind of secret this disciple of his was hiding, it did not seem to be a bad thing now. The stronger she was, the longer the legacy of the Sky Sword Immortal sect would be. Even if she was a reincarnator, she would definitely stand at the peak of the world in the future. A casual protection would be enough for the Sky Sword Immortal sect to prosper. Oh, haha, very good. Qingchan, I have never seen such a talent in my life. If you have any doubts, you can tell me at any time. As soon as Duan Wuyong finished speaking, Yi Qingchan's lips curled into a smile. Master, I do have a favor to ask of you. What is it? You see, I have been in seclusion for so long, and I have no chance to gain experience. I plan to go down the mountain for a while to see the scenery of this world. Yi Qingchan stuck out her tongue and said with a pleading expression. The situation in the eastern border is chaotic now, and there are battles everywhere. If you go down the mountain now, Duan Wuyong frowned slightly. If it were in the past, he would not object to his disciple going down the mountain to gain experience. But Yi Qingqian did not go down the mountain to gain experience. She most likely went for Ling Xiao. His sky sword immortal sect finally had such a heaven-defying genius. If she was kidnapped by that bastard, oh master! Can't you just give me a few more life-saving trump cards? Yi Qingqian's eyes flashed cunningly. She shook Duan Wuyong's arm and said pitifully. Chapter 321. A trump card to save my life? Duan Wuyong raised his eyebrows, feeling uneasy. But when he saw the anticipation in Yi Qingqian's eyes, he didn't try to persuade her. It was better to let her go. If he tried to stop her, it would be counterproductive. It was said that Ling Xiao had confessed to Nian Qingyun, the goddess of the Tao Palace, at the top of Mount Enlightenment. Yi Qingqian would find out about this bastard's reputation if she asked around. At that time, they would naturally be thoroughly disappointed in him. Okay, this soul transformation talisman has sealed one of my divine soul incarnations, which is comparable to the divine emperor. Keep this message talisman well. If you need anything, send me a message immediately. And this exquisite 7 orifices pagoda is a defensive treasure. It can save your life at a critical moment. Duan Wuyong took out many spirit treasures from his Qiankuan bag one by one, and Yi Qingqian's beautiful face suddenly bloomed with a beautiful smile. Sir, I hope you like the gifts I brought for you. Duan Wuyong scratched his head until Yi Qingqian was far away. He felt that the scene in front of him was familiar. Are you still unwilling to merge with me? But, just as Yi Qingqian walked out of the Sky Sword Immortal Sect and stood on the branch of an ancient tree at the foot of the mountain, a strange female voice suddenly sounded in her mind. Merge with you? Or be controlled by you? The smile on Yi Qingqian's face had long disappeared, and it turned into an extremely cold expression. Beneath her, the ancient forest instantly turned into an ice sculpture. Even the living beings within were frozen at the moment when the deep blue light shone in her eyes. Why don't you understand? You are me and I am you. What's the difference? Only by merging with me can we awaken our memories and awaken our strength. The voice was filled with anger. She could forcibly control Yi Qingqian's divine soul, but once she did so, it would be difficult for her to return to her peak state. Haha, you are me? I like Lord Ling Xiao. Why do you hate him so much? Yi Qingqian shook her head and smiled disdainfully. She discovered that as her cultivation grew stronger, this inexplicable soul would gradually fuse with her. This fusion was not something she could resist. However, with his cultivation sealed, he was nothing more than a cripple to the young master. What right did he have to stand beside him? It was a very contradictory feeling. Therefore, she didn't want to wait any longer. She wanted to stay by young master's side right now. There's something wrong with that Ling Xiao's aura. He's definitely not as simple as you think. In fact, the ancient soul's voice was filled with fear. Although she had only seen Ling Xiao a few times, she could vaguely sense a trace of an evil and familiar aura from him. That kind of aura had once consigned her to eternal damnation. The only thing that puzzled her was, who was Ling Xiao? Didn't that person already? I don't care who he is. In front of me, he is the Lord Ling Xiao who protected me, cherished me, and gave me countless opportunities. If you don't want me to do it, I will do it. If you have the ability, you can forcibly fuse with me. Yi Qingqian sneered and suddenly stepped out, heading down the mountain. You will regret it sooner or later. The ancient soul let out a sorrowful cry before disappearing into thin air. Yi Qingqian was still in control of this body. She didn't dare to be too impatient because there was a secret hidden in her heart that could overturn the entire Xingzhou. In the center of the Xingzhou, on a towering mountain, dense spirit qi had turned into a sea of clouds. Ancient trees towered into the sky, bearing mystical fruits. Endless Taoist rhymes covered thousands of miles of the sky. This was the heavenly Tao sacred mountain, which was regarded as a sacred place by all the forces in the Xingzhou. At this moment, a golden-robed figure stood on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back. Behind him stood an old Taoist. That's right. This aura can't be wrong. Go. Yes. A solemn look flashed across the old Taoist's eyes. He turned around and disappeared. In the secret realm, Ling Xiao looked at the blood-red ghost pearl and the crimson gold dragon talisman in his hand. There wasn't much joy on his face. Lin Shi, Xia Chen, Ling Tian, Su Yan, and Bai Ling. In one secret realm, he had taken care of 5 people with heavenly fate. Although the process was a little complicated, he had gained a lot this time. The soul-sucking ghost pearl, divine wings of tempest, immemorial emperor flames, water, fire, origin, darkness, and massacre laws had directly improved his strength. Not to mention, he had also found a way to become a heavenly fate body. Empress Wushuang Gu Chaoxiai. This was the name in Xia Chen's memory. At the same time, he finally understood why Xia Chen had such a strong obsession with Nian Qinyun. Chaotic divine body. It was said that the Xingzhou upper world was called the Green Wave Realm. There were many dynasties and ancient sects, experts roamed freely, and martial arts reigned supreme. The God Emperor was the threshold for the younger generation to compete for. Each ancient sect had a saint stage expert. That was a world where war was waged and cultivation was not allowed. Geniuses came in large numbers and monsters were everywhere. It was a fascinating place. Gu Chaoxiai was the successor of an everlasting dynasty. Her talent was unparalleled, and she dominated her generation. Even with Xia Chen's strength, he was crushed in front of her. However, Gu Chaoxiai had shown her face since the day she came to the world. She had never revealed her celestial appearance. This undoubtedly made her name even more mysterious. She was cold and arrogant, and no one could enter her eyes. She was decisive in killing. When she came of age, she took charge of a dynasty alone and commanded the world. Gu Chaoxiai? Ling Zhao's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked up at the sky, deep in thought. If he wanted to create a heavenly fate body as soon as possible, the Green Wave Realm was the starting point. It seemed that he had to reach the God Emperor level quickly before he could think of a way to enter that realm. However, before that, he still had to deal with the Saint sect. Ever since Liang Yi told him about the secret of the Sky Demon's true body, he had always felt that there was an extremely shocking secret hidden in the Saint sect. But what was it? Ling Xiao now had 8 types of Tao laws. As long as he integrated one more type of Tao law, the Sky Demon's true body would enter the 3rd transformation realm and open a new demonic body form. The demonic body had 9 transformations, and each transformation represented a new form. The Sky Demon Palace had 9 great demon generals, and the demonic shadow outside Liang Yi was an evil dragon. What was the connection between them? The bloodthirsty ghost pearl entered his soul sea and emitted a gloomy blood light, which shone together with the soul palace formed by the Pangu stone. At this moment, Ling Zhao's divine soul was really impregnable. It could attack or defend. Young master! Shui Yuer's figure rushed out of the ancient forest and stood beside Ling Xiao. She seemed to be afraid of him. She had seen how terrifying Nian Qinyun was. Perhaps, only an immortal who could suppress the heavens and the earth was worthy of this young master in front of her? Let's go. It's time to end our trip to the secret realm. Ling Xiao said calmly. He looked at the valley in front of him and walked toward the fire tribe. Chapter 322. The Land of the Fire Tribe. A group of mystic realm experts gathered around and watched as Yi Shun and the others skillfully slaughtered their clansmen, set up a pot and boiled water. Then, they added spiritual pepper, spiritual onion, and spiritual ginger as the base. On the side, Yi Lang waved his sword and chopped a dead dragon into pieces on the ground before throwing it into the pot. 4 dragon claws and 2 white kidneys were roasted over the fire until golden brown and sprinkled with some red powder. Although there was some sorrow in his eyes, a trace of tears flowed from the corner of his mouth. Slurp. Around them, a group of fire tribe experts used their spirit chi to cook the meat in the pot. They controlled the fire perfectly. Smells so good. Bai Ling's eyes were already filled with greed as the smell of meat drifted in the air. Suddenly, there was a rush of wind in the distance. Ling Xiao, Ling Tian, Yi Suner Su Yen, Fu Yunyao, and Xiao Tu descended from the sky and landed in front of everyone. It does smell good. Brother Yi Shen, thank you. Haha, greetings, young master, young masters, and young ladies. The one we killed today has a great background. He is the 6th son of the previous leader of the Flood Dragon tribe, Yi Lu. His nickname is Lu. He has a pure bloodline and is at the Divine Lord realm. Yi Shen bowed to Ling Xiao and the latter just nodded calmly. Then, under the guidance of the fire tribe leader, they walked into a hall not far away. Ling Xiao had no interest in the origin of the fire tribe. Now that they had submitted to him, it was just icing on the cake. If not for the slave mark left by the ancient emperor, this tribe would have been wiped out. However, seeing the group of mystic realm experts being so respectful to Ling Xiao, Su Yen and the others suddenly felt a little depressed. It seemed like, no matter where this young master went, he would become the center of attention. The divine emperor bowed his head and cooked a dragon to congratulate him? How many people in the younger generation of the Shengzhou could compare to this? Even the saint of the sacred sect could not compare to him. Unknowingly, Su Yan's eyes were filled with joy. Brother, why do you look so worried? And is she sister-in-law? Bai Ling sat beside Ling Xiao, a trace of concern in her dark eyes. She was naturally referring to Su Yan. Especially when the latter looked at Ling Xiao with such tenderness, it reminded her of the young girl that Lin she had entrusted to brother Ling Xiao. Su Yan blushed and hurriedly waved his hands. There was an indescribable sense of panic in his heart. I'm fine, Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. Beside him, Su Yan looked as if he wanted to say something. Young master, I heard earlier that Xia Qin chased after the goddess and caused her to perish? Su Yan's beautiful eyes flickered with a trace of sadness and anticipation. Yes. During the battle in the valley just now, Ling Xiao did not deliberately conceal his aura, so it was inevitable that he would be noticed. Moreover, he had killed Xia Chen to protect Nian Qingyun. He had originally wanted to use the ethereal Dao Palace to eliminate Yuan Yu sacred land. In this way, no sacred land in the entire eastern border would dare to compete with the Ling people. As for the divine palace that suddenly shattered the void, no one would think much of it. They would most likely think that it was a trick left behind by the ethereal Dao Palace for Nian Qingyun. Moreover, it was about time for Liang Yi to clean up the eastern border monsters who had entered the mystic realm. The reason why Ling Xiao brought Su Yan and the others here was because he was worried that they would be slaughtered by the former. He had no way to explain Nian Qingyun's disappearance, so he might as well let the world misunderstand that she had perished. In this way, he could use this opportunity to plot against Yuan Yu sacred land, where Xia Feng was. Your saint killed my fiancé. Your sacred land has to pay a price, right? Young master, please, restrain your grief. Su Yan bowed slightly, but the corners of his mouth curled up inexplicably. She was originally worried about how to snatch Ling Xiao from Nian Qingyun. Who would have thought that goddess had perished at such a timely time? Who is the goddess? Bai Ling glanced warily at Su Yan, and a trace of hostility suddenly appeared on her face. If she was the sister-in-law that brother Lin she had entrusted before his death, then it was fine. But if she wasn't, no one is allowed to get close to my brother. Of course, Su Yan also recognized this girl. She was the one who had provoked Ling Xiao on the day the mystic realm opened. But Su Yen wasn't worried at all about how the two of them had resolved the conflict. She was just a little girl. How could she snatch her man away from her? Goddess? She was your brother Ling Zhao's fiancée. Su Yen smiled faintly and straightened his chest. Although she was telling the truth, Bai Ling was shocked when she heard it. What? Brother? Fiancé? Could it be? Boom! A bloody aura quietly spread out, attracting the attention of countless people in the hall. No wonder brother looked so gloomy. It made one's heart ache to see him like this. But who dared to kill my sister-in-law? Xia Chen is dead. Don't mention this again. Ling Xiao shook his head, and his expression was still calm. Young master, the meat is here. At this moment, Yi Shen and the others brought the flood dragon pot over and stood quietly at the side. Ling Xiao just took out a jar of immortal wine and poured it for himself. He drank cup after cup. But today's flood dragon meat and immortal wine were a little bitter and boring. Everyone was silent, and the happiness on their faces gradually turned into depression. Especially Ling Tian, who looked at Ling Xiao with a worried expression. It was common for people to die when fighting for treasures in the mystic realm. But Ling Tian knew that his brother loved Goddess Nian deeply. Now that she was dead, his brother would definitely be sad. Brother, you are always like this. You always suppress your sadness in the bottom of your heart. If possible, let me share the burden with you. Isn't that good? The banquet ended. Hua Heng arranged accommodations for everyone, but Ling Xiao walked out of the ancient hall alone. He stood at the peak of the Black Mountain and silently looked up at the sky. He was waiting for someone. The space behind him trembled slightly, and then Liang Yi walked out of the darkness and stood beside him. Everything is cleaned up? Ling Xiao asked softly without turning his head. My lord, everything is cleaned up. Liang Yi bowed and didn't say anything else. Have you been to the world above the Xingzhou continent? Ling Xiao suddenly asked. Liang Yi hesitated for a while and shook his head. No, the world I came from is above the 9 heavens. Oh, if I ask you to destroy the Saint sect, how confident are you? Destroy the Saint sect. Liang Yi's eyes narrowed, and he said bitterly, if it was 1,000 years ago, it would only take a thought. But now, I can't do it. Is it the shackles of the heavenly Tao in this world? It's a shackle, but not the way of heaven. However, my lord, if you know too much now, it will be easy to expose yourself. Once those people sense your divine sense, they will definitely ignore the consequences. In this life, we need to be careful. I believe that one day, the Sky Demon Palace will rise above the universe again. I want to take a few people out. Next, you can choose some experts from the eastern border and train them in this secret realm. I want an army that will completely obey my orders. They will be the opportunity for the Sky Demon Palace to rise again. Don't worry about anything, just be careful of the Saint sect. Ling Xiao turned and looked at Liang Yi deeply. Since he once stood at the peak of the world, his means must be incomparable to ordinary experts. Under his training, it would be twice the result with half the effort. One day, when I rise above the universe and summon the 4 borders, what can the Saint sect do to me? I will change the sky for the demon sun wherever the sun shines. The demon is also an immortal. Yes, my lord. Liang Yi bowed, turned around, and disappeared. It wasn't until he was far away that Ling Xiao summoned the system and looked at the 3 realm seed fragment. System, how do I synthesize these realm seeds? The host needs to exchange for a realm seed synthesizing talisman before it can be fused into a realm. Synthesizing talisman? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He opened the Villain Points store and browsed for a moment, but in the end, he didn't see the so-called synthesizing talisman. Damn. This synthesizing talisman can't be exchanged with luck points, right? Beat. Congratulations to the host for guessing correctly, but there is no reward. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth. Sometimes, he had a vague feeling that the system wasn't just a tool. It seemed to have emotions and thoughts. Ling Xiao felt that this thought was ridiculous. When he found the realm seed synthesizing talisman in the luck store, Ling Xiao finally couldn't hide his anger anymore. After taking care of the 3 children of destiny, I finally collected all the realm seed fragments. But this synthesizing talisman costs 4,000 luck points, which is more than 2 children of destiny. In view of the host's humiliation of the system, the realm seed synthesizing talisman will be removed from the store tomorrow. I hope the host can collect the luck points as soon as possible, or all our efforts will be in vain. F***CK. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth and walked toward the Fire Tribe's sacred palace. After killing Lin Shi, Xiachen, and subduing Bai Ling, he had obtained a total of 3,000 points of providence. Earlier today, he didn't know if it was Yi Qinchan or Lin Meng who made a breakthrough, but it helped him get another 500 luck points. If he wanted to collect the remaining 500 luck points, he would have to start with Su Yan. After all, the only children of destiny in the mystery realm were her, Bai Ling, Ling Tian, and Yi Sun. The latter 3 wouldn't be able to provide him with luck points for the time being, but Su Yan, haha, it was time to test his acting skills again. Chapter 323. Ling Xiao walked all the way to the Fire Tribe's sacred palace. At this time, everyone had already dispersed and the entire sacred palace was extremely empty. Although the Blood Moon Forbidden Zone had opened as he wished and he had gained a lot from this trip, he didn't feel very happy. As for how to make himself happy quickly, the best way was, a rich woman was very good. Shut the hell up. I just want to improve my strength faster and step into the Green Wave realm as soon as possible so that I can reunite with Nian Qingyun. Strength was the foundation of a villain's success. The path to immortality was vast and sadness and happiness were all in an instant. Since it was on this path, everything had its own cause and effect. Why bother to argue? Yen-er, are you asleep? In the Fire Tribe's sacred palace, Ling Xiao stood outside Su Yan's room and asked softly, Young master? The door opened and Su Yan looked at the young man in front of her in surprise. There was a sickly shyness on her face. It's so late. Young master, what's the matter? In any case, she was also a lady of a noble family. Although the path to immortality was not as restrictive as the mortal world, but at this time, and who was Su Yan? The successor of the Cloud Alliance. Since young, the environment she lived in was filled with ups and downs. Although her talent was not as good as Nian Qingyun and Yi Qinchan, her control of people's hearts was far beyond her peers. Since young, her father had told her that the more you wanted something, the more you couldn't show it. In this way, you won't be disappointed and you won't lose. Ling Xiao was very good and even risked his life for her, which made Su Yan especially touched. But her nature was still a successor of the Merchant Alliance. After experiencing the feeling of being touched and trusting, she quickly calmed down. Now that the trip to the mystic realm is coming to an end, I promised Yen-er that I would give you a good fortune. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and there was a touch of warmth between his brows. From the moment Su Yan attacked Lin Shi, he knew that this woman was not as gentle as she looked on the surface. In fact, her temperament was far more terrifying than ordinary geniuses. Young master, come in quickly. Su Yan's face was stunned and she hurriedly led Ling Xiao into the room. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation. She knew that the latter had a spiritual fire in his hands. However, if she wanted him to give it to her, she was afraid that it would be impossible without paying a price. Lin Shi hasn't shown up yet. I wonder, young master, have some tea. There's no need for that. Yen-er, the spiritual fire you want. Ling Xiao waved his hand and the green devil ancient cauldron appeared in his hand. The red spiritual fire on Lin Shi's body was sealed within it. This aura, as expected, Su Yan's beautiful face suddenly froze, and the desire in her eyes couldn't be concealed. The The reason why she had taken such a huge risk to enter the mystic realm was for a heaven and earth spirit fire. With it, she might be able to live for another 10 to 20 years, but without it, she would only have 3 years at most before she would be tortured to death by the cold poison. There is a heaven and earth spirit fire sealed inside. This cauldron belongs to Mother. Do you have any other items that can seal a heaven and earth spirit fire? Ling Zhao's eyes were gentle, and his tone was somewhat apologetic. Young master, this spiritual fire, I gave it to Yen. Didn't I say before that I would give it to Yen? Ling Xiao shook his head, and there wasn't a trace of pretentiousness on his face. Since he wanted to plunder the luck points, he had to pay a price. As for whether the heaven and earth spirit fire was meaningful or not, he had already obtained the luck point. If Su Yan still didn't want to submit to him, he could use some other means to make her submit. As for what means, don't ask. If you ask, you'll have to guess. He gave it to me. Su Yan's beautiful face was in a daze. Although Ling Xiao had said that he would find the spiritual fire for her, when she saw the spiritual fire in front of her, she suddenly hesitated. It was too easy. In the end, Su Yan still believed that there was no such thing as fortune that came for free in this world. Benefits were the only criteria for interpersonal relationship. But at this moment, when she heard Ling Zhao's words, some of the things that she had been holding on to suddenly wavered. Young master, after we get out, I'll bring you to the Cloud Alliance. Haha. Yenner, have you forgotten what I said? In my eyes, you are the most precious treasure in the Cloud Alliance. I know that some people might think that I got close to you because of your identity. I don't want to explain anything. Now that Qingyun has just passed away, I really don't have the mood to start a new relationship. So let's do this first. Keep the spiritual fire well. When we get out, find a container to move it away and then return the cauldron to me. After all, it belongs to my mother. Ling Xiao seemed a little disappointed and a little dispirited. He turned around and walked out of the room. 1, 2, 3, young master. Inexplicably, Su Yan looked at the lonely figure and he felt a sense of oppression that he had never felt before. Sorry, young master. Yen really shouldn't have doubted you. At this moment, she didn't know why she stopped Ling Xiao. She just didn't want him to leave. It was very contradictory. She knew that she couldn't let her emotions get the better of her. However, her emotions had suddenly overtaken her reason just like that. Beat. The destined girl is doubting herself. Congratulations to the host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain point. Oh? Yenner, is there anything else? The corners of Ling Zhao's mouth curled up into a smile, but his face was full of doubt. He was playing hard to get and retreating in order to advance. Of course, the premise was that he had already known Su Yan's intentions from the system. From the moment he killed the young master of the Gu clan, this girl's mind had undergone a subtle change. Her current restraint was more like a test after calming down. Or rather, she was instinctively on guard. After all, Su Yan's identity was respected. Her background was so rich that it could rival a state, so she never lacked bootlickers. No matter how powerful her background was, it was childish and laughable in front of the Cloud Alliance. Therefore, she probably looked at anyone who approached her with a motive. And what Ling Xiao wanted to do was to make her let down her guard. Everything would naturally fall into place. A heaven and earth spirit fire was priceless even in the Xingzhou. No one could resist the temptation of this divine object. Of course, Su Yan probably didn't expect that Ling Xiao had 3 of such divine objects. Young master, how did Nian Qingyun die? Su Yan suddenly took a deep breath and looked at Ling Xiao with a serious expression. Xia Chen was sinister. He used an extremely evil spell, and Qingyun blocked it for me. Ling Xiao lowered his head, his body trembling slightly, and even his palms unconsciously clenched into fists. At this moment there was a sinister coldness in his body. But this coldness didn't make Su Yan feel fear and disgust. Instead, it made her eyes gradually soften. She could see that Ling Xiao's heart was hurting at this moment. There was even despair mixed in this pain. Everyone said that the successor of the Ling people was unbridled and didn't have true feelings. But what she saw in this mystic realm was a peerless young master who dared to love, hate, and be righteous. The truth was really only in the hands of a few people. Lord Ling Xiao, I am willing to heal your emotional wounds. Chapter 324. Young Master, your heart must be in pain, right? Su Yan's voice gradually softened, and his expression softened. His heart ached for her. After all, Nian Qingyun was dead. She didn't need to be jealous of a dead person. But the more pain Ling Xiao was in, the more it proved that he was loyal to love. In the Shengzhou continent there were plenty of people who had 3 wives and 4 concubines. She didn't care how many people Ling Xiao had in his heart, but his love for her must be sincere. How I wish that I was the one who died. I wish that she would remember me forever. This way, her people and her dynasty. Ling Xiao bowed his head and his body trembled. After a long while, he forced a smile and said to Su Yan, "All right, Yan, it's getting late. You should rest early." Young Master. Su Yan took a step forward and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Her beautiful eyes seemed to contain the lake water. Ripples of light rippled, clear and deep. "Yen'er, what's wrong?" "Young Master, you said that you like Yen'er. Is it true?" People who were in love would always ask childish questions over and over again. Most of them preferred to hear vows with their own ears. Even if it was a lie, they would gladly endure it. So, whoever asked first would lose. Haha, I, Ling Xiao, have never lied in my life. Otherwise, let my Tao heart turn into a demon and fall endlessly. Shoo! Before Ling Xiao could finish his sentence, Su Yan suddenly covered his mouth with her hand. Her beautiful eyes were glistening with tears. "I believe you. I believe you. Young Master. I know that Goddess Nian is dead. I don't expect you to let go of her immediately. But let Yen'er accompany you, okay? No. This is not fair to you." Ling Xiao shook his head and the sorrow in his eyes deepened. "Yen'er, you are a good girl. Even if I'm not in this world, you can still find a good match. Let me bear this pain alone." Ling Xiao didn't hesitate anymore. He gently pushed Su Yan away and walked out of the room. "No. I don't want you to leave. I don't care. I only want you." Su Yan panicked when he heard Ling Xiao's resolute tone. At this moment, her modesty and her probing seemed so laughable. If she lost him, what else in this world would she miss? Su Yan hugged Ling Xiao tightly from behind. He couldn't hold back his tears any longer. "I know I'm not as good as Nian Qingyun. I'm not in good health and I'm not as beautiful as her. But, Ling Xiao, I can do whatever she can for you. I swear I won't doubt you because of anyone or anything. I'll always stand behind you and accompany you. I won't let you be lonely." Beep. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for triggering an additional reward, 1 Realm Seed Synthesis Talisman. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a Divine Level Qi Concealing Talisman. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1 drop of Ancient Divine Dragon Blood Essence. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the title of Shengzhou's Perverted Head. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the title of Shengzhou's First Oscar Best Actor. D.F***CKU. Ling Xiao blocked the system's notifications, but he couldn't help but smile. What was the surprise? He didn't expect his acting skills to be so good that he actually got the system's approval. "Su Yan, why did you give up so quickly?" But it was also true. Su Yan had already shown her submission during the battle with Cho Yi. Now that Ling Xiao had given her the spiritual fire and words of love, she still didn't submit to him. It could only mean that someone wanted to cheat the plot. F***ck. Yen. Ling Xiao slowly turned around. His eyes were red, as if he had just cried. So, he didn't turn around because he didn't want me to see his cowardice. The corners of Su Yan's mouth curled up into a gentle smile as she leaned against Ling Xiao's chest. Give me a chance, okay? Try to accept me. Don't bear everything by yourself. I'll try my best to be your wife and the mother of our child. You really don't care about my heart. Ling Xiao bowed his head, and his tone was guilty. You really don't care? Actually, I care about your family's mine. No, I care. How can I not care? But, young master, compared to losing you, it's not important. Su Yan's hands gradually tightened, as if she wanted to merge into Ling Xiao's body. Oh. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently, but his arms used the same strength and hugged Su Yan tightly. I'm really tired. Young master, then let's rest? Su Yan's voice sounded a little shy and nervous, but there was also a hint of anticipation in his voice. With Ling Xiao's reputation, if her father knew about their relationship, he would definitely not agree. All these years, her father had arranged marriage for her. They were all the young masters of the top holy sects and ancient clans in the Xingzhou. But although Su Yan looked proud and cold, in her heart, she always had an indescribable inferiority complex. Because her life could come to an end at any time. She yearned for a sincere love and a carefree life. However, due to the torment of her extreme body, she could never cultivate, travel, or love like the other proud daughters of the heavens. It was very contradictory. He was clearly surrounded by groups of bootlickers. Her father had given her everything she wanted. But she was never truly happy. Her smile was just F***ck. It was messed up. In short, Ling Xiao had mended a small crack in her heart that had never healed. He gave her hope, selfless love, and a strong sense of security. So, Su Yan decided that she wanted to cook rice. In this way, her father and the rest couldn't object, right? Rest? This isn't good. How can I tarnish your reputation? But before Ling Xiao could finish his sentence, the girl in front of him had already tiptoed and covered his mouth with her red lips, stopping him from speaking. Suddenly, there was a ripple of spring in the main hall. Su Yan's lips were cold, very cold. It was different from Yan Qingyun's. Even after Su Yan left Ling Xiao's embrace with her face flushed red, the young man's face still carried a dazed expression. Young master, let's rest. Ling Xiao frowned and hesitated. But Su Yan suddenly stretched out her hand and held his hand. Since I'm willing to follow you and be your wife, I won't regret it in this life. As for reputation, as long as young master is pure and innocent, the Cloud Alliance will stop the rumors. Su Yan didn't say anything else. She held Ling Xiao's hand and led him to the bed. Then she leaned into the young man's embrace. I know that you still can't let go of her. I just want to tell you that is willing to be honest with you. Will use this life to prove that I'm willing to give up everything for you. Tears gradually fell from Su Yan's eyes and fell on Ling Xiao's chest. It was inexplicably cold. At this moment, she was also shy and expectant. Young master. Although Er's body was cold, the adorable young master's heart was burning. Believes that one day you will feel it. Young master, let me hug you, please. Just hug me. Chapter 325. Young master, is so cold. Every night, I can't control the cold. I'm in so much pain that I wish I was dead. In the past, was afraid that I would die alone. But now, is even more afraid. Young master, hold me tight. Just hold me tight, okay? Su Yan's voice was like a murmur and there was an inexplicable grievance in her tone. But Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. His eyes were calm as he said, You won't die. I won't let you die. At the very least, before your father dies. After he finished speaking, Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked deeply at the girl in his arms. He bent down and kissed her. A soft moan sounded like a gust of wind blowing across the swamp. Instantly, 10,000 layers of ripples appeared. The two who were originally suppressing their emotions gradually took the initiative and became infatuated. In the end, they hugged each other and kissed with all their might. Young Master Su Yan's face was flushed red and she was panting. It was unknown whether she was shy or wanted it. After all, her heart had already surrendered and she no longer had any worries. The spiritual fire is domineering. With your delicate body, it will be dangerous to fuse with it. Why don't I try to refine some of the cold in your body? Then, you will have more confidence in fusing with the spiritual fire. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and his face was solemn and serious. At this time, you expect a woman to take the initiative? Then you are really a gentleman. I am a villain. Of course, what I want to do is not to use force. I want to teach you honestly. I want to understand your feelings and reason with you. I, Ling Xiao, am the most reasonable person in Xingzhou. If you don't agree, then argue. Refine some? How? Indeed, Su Yan was stunned when she heard this. Originally, she only wanted to borrow the power of the spiritual fire to disperse the cold in her body. She didn't really want to fuse with the spiritual fire. After all, the power of the spiritual fire was not something that a Paong cultivator like her could resist. If she did that, she would be burned to ashes in an instant. But after hearing Ling Xiao's words, she seemed to be moved. If she could really fuse with the spiritual fire, her cold poison would most likely be completely removed, right? Previously, she had fused the spirit fire into his body. When I killed him, I found a qi method in his Qiankuan bag. However, this method is extremely dangerous. With your sickly body, I'm afraid. Don't be anxious for now. You need to strengthen your body first. Only then will it be possible to fuse the spirit fire into your body. However, the method I can think of, young master, just tell me. No matter what method it is, wants to try it. This way, I can always be by your side. Su Yan was a little anxious, and her beautiful eyes looked at Ling Xiao with anticipation. You have the extreme yin physique. Previously, I was lucky enough to comprehend the law of fire. It is the extreme yang physique. I heard them say that yin and yang are compatible, perhaps. Ling Xiao smiled awkwardly and seemed to be in a difficult position. I know, this method is a little too childish. But please believe me, I'm really not lusting after your body. I just want to give you happiness. Young master, don't say any more. Is willing to play this game for once. Su Yan was stunned for a full 3 seconds before she understood the meaning behind Ling Xiao's words. In the end, a trace of shyness appeared on her face. She took the initiative to remove her clothes, revealing her shocking snow-white skin. Ling Xiao took a deep breath, and his eyes flickered with an evil light. The emperor's robe on his body automatically disappeared, and he gently pressed the girl in his arms under his body. Boom! A scorching hot feeling instantly filled the entire ancient palace. A trace of pain appeared on Su Yan's face. However, it quickly turned into a touch of moving shyness. For the entire night, she didn't feel a trace of coldness. The torturous yin qi in the past seemed to have been reduced by a lot under the endless collisions. Perhaps it was because she was tired, or perhaps it was because he was there. In any case, Su Yan slept very soundly this time. When the sky gradually brightened the next day, Su Yan opened her beautiful eyes and looked at the young man beside her with anticipation. Young master, this method is indeed useful. It's still early. Why don't we cultivate for a while? The corners of Ling Xiao's eyes trembled slightly. However, before he could refuse, the girl's delicate body suddenly pressed horizontally against his. Her fragrant lips pressed against his, and it was another round of lovemaking. Young master, the cold in my body seems to have dissipated by a lot. It seems that we have to cultivate more in the future. When it was noon, Su Yan sat in front of the mirror and applied makeup. The sickly look on her face had indeed lessened by a little. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He looked at the red patch on the bed, and a soul light flickered in his eyes. Realm seed fuse. Buzz. A strange buzzing sound instantly resounded. Su Yan was startled, and the spiritual energy in her body surged violently. She turned to look at the young man on the bed, dumbfounded. This guy didn't break through, right? However, at this time, Ling Xiao smiled at her apologetically. However, there was a trace of excitement in the depths of his eyes. At this time, a strange golden vortex quietly appeared in his soul palace. Ling Xiao's mind moved, and his soul instantly entered it. Then, the world in front of him suddenly became desolate. What appeared in front of him was a dark world. There were mountains, rivers, lakes, and dangerous peaks. However, it lacked a trace of spiritual energy and a trace of vitality. This is the embryonic form of the world. Ling Xiao raised his head and suddenly waved his hand. A thunder sun stretched across the heaven and earth, emitting a dazzling light. At the same time, at the end of the heaven and earth, the soul-sucking ghost pearl quietly appeared, turned into a blood moon, and slowly rose. The world began to light up, and the darkness was completely dispelled. The sun and the moon complemented each other, and there was a hint of creation. However, what he saw was that this soul-sea world was still a desolate place. It seems that I have to find a spirit vein to put it in. A trace of understanding flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. His figure flashed and instantly disappeared from the spot. Miss Su Yan, my clan leader invites you for a meal. Suddenly, a voice came from outside the hall. Su Yan turned around and looked at Ling Xiao. The corners of her mouth curled up, and she directly opened the door. However, when the disciple of the fire tribe saw Ling Xiao walking out with her, his face suddenly froze. Oh no! It was the feeling of being killed. But in the end, Ling Xiao just looked at him calmly and left with Su Yan. At the entrance of the secret realm, Ling Xiao stood at the peak of the mountain. Ling Tian, Yi Suner, Su Yan, Bai Ling, and the others followed closely behind him. Today was the day the secret realm opened. They should also return to their own sections. But faintly, everyone felt that sooner or later, they would meet again. Especially when they saw Ling Xiao standing in front of everyone, whether it was Ling Tian or Bai Ling, there was a faint trace of anticipation in their eyes. Brother, I will do as you wish and work hard to cultivate. Only then will there be a day when I can stand side by side with you. Young master, you must come back and visit often. Far away in the sky, Yi Shin's old tears flowed down his face. F***CK. Did I lick young master's boots for more than 20 days for nothing? Why did he take away all the experts from the Fire Tribe and Xing clan and only leave me behind? Could it be because I am powerful and he wants me to guard this place as a backup plan? Yes, that must be it. I miss all of you. I will come back. Ling Xiao waved his hand and secretly shook his head. As expected, villains bear the worship and love that they should not have at this age. Sigh. If he was the son of destiny, at the age of 17 or 18, he would definitely walk neatly wherever he went. Ha push! Buzz! Suddenly, there was a terrifying buzz between heaven and earth. Immediately, the spiritual spiral at the entrance of the secret realm appeared again. Ling Xiao looked deeply at Bai Ling and Ling Tian. The two of them immediately understood and took the first step out. Now, the two of them had their own missions. For the time being, it was better not to expose their relationship with Su Yan. The sound of wind breaking resounded, and figures filed out one after another. However, compared to the liveliness when they entered, there were only a dozen people who appeared at the peak of Dao Comprehension Mountain. Everyone looked at the spiritual spiral that was suspended in midair with a complicated look in their eyes. Only Ling Xiao's eyes were clear and cold, without the slightest fluctuation. Wasn't the path to immortality like this? Creation created life, creation died. Fight with the heavens, fight with people. So, what was there to be sad about? It didn't matter if it was love or hate. No matter how many people you have met, no one is like me. I, Ling Xiao, will never be defined by others. I only decide the life and death of others. Chapter 326. Young Master, what do you plan to do next? Xiao Tu, Fu Yunyao, and Su Yan stood behind Ling Xiao with a solemn look on their faces. They all knew about Nian Qingyun's death. Even the young master's aura was much colder now. Obviously, he was suffering in his heart. The Yuanyu sacred ground was in big trouble. You guys go back to the Universal Demon sect first. I have to go back to the Ling people. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at Sect Master Taixian and Liang Yi, who were standing in front of the ancient palace in the distance. He had to go to the western border, but before he went, he still had to settle some debt. Senior Brother Xiao, this is the first 3 moves of the Soul Sword. Study it carefully. Yunyao, here are some spirit treasures and pills. You can use them for cultivation. Ling Xiao took out a Qianquan bag and handed it to Xiao Tuesday. Su Yan didn't say anything from the beginning to the end. He just stood there quietly and waited. Thank you, young master. Xiao Tu and Fu Yunyao bowed. Fu Yunyao, especially, looked at Ling Xiao with an inexplicable sense of loss. She originally thought that the young master would take a second look at her after Nian Qingyun's death. But now, she understood when she saw Su Yan behind Ling Xiao. Yes, the young master was now the strongest existence among the younger generation in the eastern border. The divine emperor bowed his head. The girls standing beside him were all the best in the Xingzhou. How could she, a true disciple of a supreme Taoism, be worthy of his attention? Yunyao, I will leave the eastern border soon. The position of the young master of the Universal Demon sect will be handed over to you. I will personally send a message to the sect master. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the young girl, whose eyes were downcast as he smiled warmly. Fu Yunyao had followed Ling Xiao for a longer time than Xiao Tu, and she wasn't forced to submit. Such a subordinate was worthy of the status he deserved. Ling Xiao didn't care about the young master of the Universal Demon sect anymore. What he wanted was no longer some background or identity, but the power in his hands. In the end, whether it was the enemy of 10,000 or the myriad Tao demon sect, it was just an umbrella that protected him when he was weak. When others heard his name, they felt fear. But once he left the eastern border, this deterrence would disappear. Moreover, this demonic sect was after all his own sect. If they were to fight, they would be the enemy of tens of thousands of people. But to ask him to fight against the saint was a little too much. Supreme Taoist orthodoxy had been passed down for thousands of years. However, no one who could sit on the position of sect master would act according to their temperament. Ling Xiao understood this logic. But if one day Fu Yunyao took the position of sect master, everything would be different. Young master, Fu Yunyao's beautiful eyes narrowed, and her originally depressed mood instantly vanished. It turns out that young master still cares about me. The young master of the myriad Tao demon sect? She didn't even dare to dream of such an honor. Go. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. No matter how reluctant Fu Yunyao was, she didn't say anything in the end. She flew into the distance with Xiao Tuesday. When the two of them were far away, Su Yan chuckled softly and said, "You are quite concerned about Senior Sister Fu. Since I joined the Universal Demon sect, Senior Sister Fu has given me a lot of happiness. Over the years, she has been even more loyal and devoted." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and didn't explain too much. Su Yan just nodded, and he felt more and more satisfied with Ling Xiao in his heart. He was affectionate, righteous, and dared to take responsibility for his actions. This was a real man. You should have something to do, right? Then I will wait for you in Enlightenment City. I will take out the spiritual fire and return the cauldron to Auntie. Seeing that Ling Xiao didn't move, Su Yen knew what he was thinking. He immediately tiptoed and moved closer to Ling Xiao. I want a kiss. Okay, you go to Enlightenment City first. I have something to discuss with Sect Master Taishan. Ling Xiao reached out and pinched Su Yan's pretty face. The latter immediately snorted and walked down the mountain with an aggrieved expression. My lord. Liang Yi flew over from the void and bowed respectfully to Ling Xiao. Behind him, Sect Master Taishan bowed and didn't get up. Get up. Ling Xiao said indifferently and looked up at the sky. The trip to the secret realm was over. The chaos in the eastern border had only just begun. Now, the younger generation of the eastern border sacred sects and ancient clans were almost all dead. Some people might not be able to sit still. You saw the scenes of reincarnation in the faceless jade wall, right? Liang Yi narrowed his eyes and knelt on the ground with a thud. I deserve to die. But at that time, I didn't dare to confirm your identity, so I don't blame you. Let me ask you, did you see Nian Qingyun's past reincarnation? Ling Xiao shook his head and had some doubts in his heart. What kind of method did the Empress of the Celestial Dynasty use to deceive the world and come down with her soul to train her mind? My lord, are you talking about the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace? I saw her, but she didn't reincarnate. She only had one life. What do you mean? This person was formed by a wisp of spiritual soul. She was training in this world and returned from the secret realm. It was destiny. Destiny? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Shouldn't the goddess of destiny be protected by the heavenly path? What was going on? With my current strength, I can't really see it clearly, but I think the problem should be with her body. Maybe it has something to do with her body. Liang Yi shook his head. Even with his experience, he had only seen the body of chaos once in 1,000 years. It was said that when this body of chaos was cultivated to the extreme, it could split the sky and earth and form a universe of its own. It seemed that Nian Qingyun's origin was not simple, but he didn't know whether it was a human or a god who wanted to break her body of chaos. Suddenly, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a smile. It seemed to be a conspiracy. If everything was inevitable, then wasn't this game a little too big? Interesting. It was getting more and more interesting. In this trip to the secret realm, many heavenly talents of the eastern border died. I'm afraid that there will be people who will harm the Taishan Dao sect. You too be careful. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared from where he was. Now, in the Shringzhou, Liang Yi and Lord Taishan were undoubtedly the strongest. Especially Lord Taishan, who was a 9th-grade divine emperor, could be said to be his biggest trump card. Of course, such a trump card couldn't be exposed easily. It could only be used at the critical moment to turn the situation around. Farewell, my lord. Liang Yi and Lord Taishan bowed at the same time. When they looked up again, the young man was no longer in front of them. Lord Dragon General, this Lord Taishan wanted to say something but stopped. Liang Yi's expression was inexplicably solemn. I once felt a strange spiritual fluctuation in the Lord's demonic eyes. I couldn't see through his reincarnation. I'm afraid it was a trick set up by the Lord himself to prevent people with ulterior motives from noticing his return. If it weren't for the Lord, even if he merged with the Sky Demon's eyes, he wouldn't have been able to open the dark forbidden zone, just like that person before. Liang Yi smiled faintly. His dim eyes shone with a strange golden light. The group of young men I asked you to find can be sent to the secret realm. The Lord said that he wants to train a group of followers. Tell the remaining cultivators of the Xing clan and the Hua clan to hunt them down. After a month, those who can survive can join the Sky Demon Palace and become evil dragon guards. Yes. Lord Taishan bowed, and his figure disappeared in an instant. My lord, you must grow up quickly. Our people are still waiting for the day when you return to the 9 heavens. At the foot of Enlightenment Mountain, Ling Xiao stood in an ancient forest and looked calmly at Yi Lang, Wunyi, and Mi Yong in front of him. He suddenly waved his hand and a cloud of celestial light filled the sky. There seemed to be an armor, a staff, and a hoop. When he saw the hoop, Yi Lang's expression froze. He almost knelt on the ground and shouted, "Daddy! I have a few places that I need you to explore and bring back the treasures." Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. 3 pieces of information instantly appeared in the sea of souls of the 3 people. Among them, there were many mountains and rivers in the eastern border that were marked. It was also the memory that Ling Xiao found in Elder Ling's Sea of Souls. Some of the ancient sites were hidden. It was obvious that they were originally prepared for the chosen one, Lin Shi. Now, he was not in the mood to explore. After all, he didn't lack spiritual treasures, but he couldn't let others take advantage of them. Moreover, the treasures that could be remembered by Elder Ling were probably not ordinary items. This is a divine level qi concealing talisman. It can conceal the demonic aura on the 3 of you. Go and find the treasures. Come and see me again. For this trip, Wunyi will be the leader. If you encounter any demons that are willing to submit, you can also accept them as your followers. Ling Xiao waved his hand and bestowed the 3 peerless divine artifacts to the 3 of them. Wunyi received a staff, Mi Yong received an armor, and Yi Lang received a hoop. Hearing this, the 3 of them bowed to Ling Xiao and turned to disappear into the darkness. The reason why Ling Xiao didn't ask Layered Shadow to accompany him on this trip was naturally because the 1000 Illusion Dao Law was really a wonderful tool to play with people in the palm of his hand. In the western border, there were endless battles. Ling Xiao needed someone who was good at disguising to follow beside him in case of emergencies. As for these 3 demons, even if their whereabouts were exposed, it would only be a distraction. This way, no one would really notice him, a true demon. As the saying goes, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, just as the auras of the 3 of them disappeared, a beautiful figure appeared outside the ancient forest. There was a trace of sadness on that enchanting face. Chapter 327. Master, what about me? Shui Yuer frowned with resentment. Go back to the Yinfan's sacred ground and wait for further orders. Remember, it was Xia Chun who killed Nian Qingyun, and you were almost killed by him. Ling Xiao said calmly before turning around and disappearing. There were 2 divine emperors and 6 divine kings from the Hua clan and Xing clan in his territory. Shui Yuer was no longer useful to him. However, since Yuan Yu Holy Land was a supreme power, they would need cannon fodder if they wanted to go on an expedition. The Yinfan's sacred ground was not bad. Moreover, Yuan Yu's sacred ground's foundation should not be weaker than the Cloud Millet Immortal sect. The supreme Tao in this area was eliminated, and the Ling clan was the king of the eastern border. In Dao Enlightenment City, Su Yan stood in the middle of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and looked at the middle-aged man who was glowing with health. A trace of surprise appeared on her face. "Father, why are you here? I heard that you sent 2 divine emperors over and I was worried. So I came to see you. How is it? Yen did you get the fortune in the secret realm?" "That's right." The man standing in front of Su Yan was the master of Yunlai Merchant Alliance and the master of Su clan who controlled the endless wealth of Xingzhou, Su Wenyan, 3rd grade divine emperor. His cultivation was not the best in Xingzhou. However, no one in the world dared to underestimate him. After all, he was a rich father. Could he do whatever he wanted with money? Be more confident, you know. Go ahead, okay? For example, the 2 old men standing behind Su Wenye were both 5th grade divine emperors. The 2 of them could easily wipe out a first-rate force with just a casual move. They were Su Yan's trump card and the reason why she had never taken Yan Qingyun, the goddess of Dao Palace, seriously. As long as she wanted to, She could kill anyone in the eastern border. Oh, she could not kill Sect Master Taishan, and Ling Xiao did not want to kill him. She could not kill her parents-in-law either. F***ck. So, she could not do whatever she wanted with money. Father, what do you think this is? Su Yan smiled and waved her hand. The green demonic ancient cauldron appeared in her hand. A wisp of extremely faint but sufficiently terrifying heat quietly spread out. Su Wenye's face immediately revealed a hint of joy. He had no son, only a daughter. In other words, Su Yan was the only successor of the business alliance. Although with his age, it was still far from the time to choose a successor, but if Su Yan died, his Su family's wealth would fall into the hands of others. In these past few years, the Cloud Alliance had exhausted countless spirit stones and spirit treasures in order to find a spirit flame of the heavens and earth, yet they were still unable to do so. She didn't expect that Su Yan would really find her this time. As expected of the head of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets. Before this, Su Wenye had once asked that person to perform a divination. He said that there was a heavenly fortune here, and Su Yan had to go there personally. With it, the Su family would be worry-free for 100 years. Now that they had the spirit fire, although it might not be able to completely solve the problem of Su Yan's body, with the wealth of the Cloud Alliance, even if they forcefully extended his life, it would be difficult for Su Yan to die even if he wanted to. Ha ha ha, that's great. Yan, as expected, you found it? Su Wenye laughed heartily. Behind him, the two god emperors of the Su clan bowed down as well. Congratulations, Alliance Master. Young Miss has obtained such a heavenly fortune. The spirit flame of the heavens and earth contained the origin. If any sect was lucky enough to obtain one, it would either be destroyed in an instant or achieve unparalleled success. If an expert obtained it, he would either be killed or become the person who truly stood at the peak of this world. Who would have thought? Young Miss actually had such luck. Our Cloud Alliance is going to prosper. I didn't obtain it. It was given to me by someone. However, Su Yan's next sentence instantly silenced the entire Spirit Treasures Hall. Especially at this moment, the shyness on Su Yan's face made Su Wenye's face tremble uncontrollably. He asked in disbelief, Yan who has such courage to give you such a fortune? It's Lord Ling Xiao. The corners of Su Yan's mouth curled up and her beautiful eyes turned into crescent moons. At this moment, her sweetness didn't seem to be fake, but this made Su Wenye even more uneasy. Ling Xiao? Could it be the Ling people, that unrestrained little devil? Then, what did you use to exchange with him? Father! Su Yan fiercely glared at Su Wenye, and a trace of anger flashed across her eyes. I already said it. Lord Ling Xiao gave it to me. Can you not use the same mindset as you used in the Merchant Alliance on everyone? Gave it to you. Su Wenye was dumbfounded. He had never seen the successor of the Ling people before, but he knew almost all the god emperors in the eastern border. Occasionally, he would hear about Ling Xiao's character and temperament in some occasions. This little bastard even snatched his fiancée's betrothal gift on the day of the engagement. Why would he be so kind as to give a heaven and earth spirit fire to Su Yan? How was that possible? A sinister look flashed across Su Wenye's eyes. Su Yan was easy to deceive. He was the most scheming person in the Holy State. Otherwise, how could he strengthen the Cloud Alliance and become the richest person in the Holy State? The law of the jungle was one of the rules in this world. The other was naturally a win-win situation. Ling Xiao definitely didn't give the fire purely to curry favor with Yan. The price was too high. In the business world, it didn't conform to the law of gambling. Therefore, he must have received some kind of reward or promise to do such a thing. Yan, tell me honestly, did Ling Xiao do anything to you? A wisp of Emperor's aura quietly spread out. The temperature of the entire Lingbao Hall suddenly dropped a few degrees. What did he do? Su Yan blushed even more, but she felt inexplicably irritated. Lord Ling Xiao gave me the heaven and earth spirit fire. Of course, he didn't do anything but love. But last night she was the one who took the initiative first. If not for that, Lord Ling Xiao would have left. Father, can't you stop looking down on people so superficial? In this world, there is more than just benefits. I believe Lord Ling Xiao truly loves me. I have already pledged my life to him. However, this was done willingly after young master gave me the heaven and earth spirit fire. Su Yan snorted coldly. She was really angry. She knew that if her father knew about this, he would definitely oppose it. That was because he had always hoped that she could marry into the Xingzhou central border so that he could consolidate his business alliance. But, I won't. I don't agree. My cloud alliance can buy this heaven and earth spirit fire at any price, but don't mention your marriage with him again. Su Wenye was also a little angry at this moment. This silly girl. Was there any difference whether he gave the fire first or after? Isn't it all because of your background or the wealth of the Cloud Alliance? If he was a genius from the central border, then so be it. However, Ling Zhao's notoriety had spread throughout the eastern border. He was a dissolute person. Moreover, wasn't he already engaged to the goddess of the Dao Palace? And now he dared to pledge his life to Su Yan? It was obvious that he was a scumbag. Unknowingly, Su Wenye's eyes were filled with killing intent. Pfft. But just as Su Wenye was secretly thinking about how to kill Ling Xiao without making it obvious, he saw Su Yan's body tremble. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face turned even paler. Today, if you don't agree to my marriage with Ling Xiao, I will extinguish this fire and die from the cold poison. Su Yan wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her voice was cold and resolute. Even the expression on his face carried a hint of despair and the will to die. Chapter 328. You bastard! Su Wenye gritted his teeth in anger, but when he saw Su Yan's pale face, he felt his heart ache. Although he was the richest man in Xingzhou, he couldn't do anything about his daughter's extreme body. Su Wenye had watched her suffer inhumane torture since she was young. One could imagine how much pain Su Wenye was in. All these years, he often thought that he would be willing to give up his wealth in exchange for his daughter's healthy growth. But Ling Xiao wasn't a good person. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that. But why did Su Yan ruin her whole life? Alliance Master, you don't have to be so angry. Just when the two of them were in a deadlock, the two fifth-grade divine emperors behind Su Wenye looked at each other and smiled bitterly. What do you mean, old son? Su Wenye frowned and shouted coldly. Anyway, Ling Xiao should still be in Dao Enlightenment City. Why don't you let me invite him over and let Alliance Master take a look? Perhaps he will understand Miss Su Yan's persistence. Grandpa's son, you can't hurt him. Otherwise, Yen'er will be angry. Su Yan's eyes were cold. Old Sun nodded and smiled awkwardly. Okay, then I'll have to trouble Old Sunday in Dao Enlightenment City. Ling Xiao walked on the street and looked at the ancient city that had regained its peace. His eyes were still calm. It wasn't until a terrifying divine sense suddenly came from the void that a trace of astonishment surged onto his face. F***ck? Someone dared to attack me in Dao Enlightenment City? An emperor god? Ling Xiao, our Alliance Master invites you to have tea. An unparalleled force spread out from the void and descended upon Ling Xiao's head. F***ck. Are you sure you're inviting me to have tea? Not inviting me to die. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, and a pair of dazzling lightning wings gradually appeared on his back. Like a thunder rock descending from the ninth heaven, wind suddenly whistled between heaven and earth. However, just as the figure of the celestial Dharch elite appeared and stepped towards Ling Xiao, a chuckle was heard from the center of the city. Ha ha ha, fellow Taoist son, don't you feel that you've lost the dignity of an emperor by attacking a junior in my city? Tao Enlightenment City Lord, dressed in a dark blue Taoist robe, walked over from the horizon and landed in front of Ling Xiao with a smile, blocking God Emperor Sunday. That's right. I'm a villain. If I'm in danger, there will naturally be someone to protect me. Why would I need to do it myself? Oh, so it's the City Lord himself. Why? Does the City Lord know the Ling people? God Emperor Sun's real name was Sun Tzu. He practiced the immovable mountain divine mantra and his defense was extremely strong. He was the personal bodyguard of the master of the Cloud Alliance, Su Wenye. Even in the Shringzhou, he was a well-known expert. Logically speaking, the Tao Comprehension City Lord, a mere 9th-level divine king, should not have the guts to stop him. However, at this moment, the latter had a faint smile on his face. No, Lord Ling Xiao is our sect master's guest. If fellow cultivator Sun dares to attack him, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave this city alive. Tao Enlightenment City Lord smiled indifferently, his tone neither servile nor overbearing. When Sun Tzu heard this, a look of anger suddenly appeared on his face. Are you threatening me? What was wrong with this world? Now, even a divine king dared to be disrespectful to a divine emperor? Although sect master Taishuan's cultivation was strong, in the end, he was standing here representing the Cloud Alliance. Could it be that the Taishan Dao sect dared to go against the Cloud Alliance? I wouldn't dare. I'm just stating a fact. Tao Enlightenment City Lord shook his head, a divine light surging in his eyes. It was obvious that he was ready to attack. He did not know much about Ling Xiao. However, today, the sect master had personally ordered that the Taishan Dao sect would follow Lord Ling Xiao's lead. The orders of the young master were the will of the heavens. The meaning of this sentence was roughly equivalent to the Taishan Dao sect being willing to die for the young master. The Cloud Alliance indeed had a deep foundation. In fact, a mere 3rd-level divine emperor actually controlled such a huge amount of wealth in the Shringzhou. No one would believe that he did not have anyone supporting him. Therefore, Tao Enlightenment City Lord was also a little nervous to provoke Sun Tzu. However, the sect master's attitude was very clear. Whoever dared to touch Lord Ling Xiao would die. Ha 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 ha. What a statement of fact. I didn't expect that a divine king would dare to speak to me like this after I've been away for a long time. Fine, I'll see if the Taishan Dao sect dares to trouble me after I kill you today. Although Sun Tzu had come to invite Ling Xiao to meet Su Wenye, he understood the sect master's intention. But how could he not understand the alliance master's intentions? Originally, he wanted to use this opportunity to properly scare this ignorant youth. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a reckless enlightened city lord. Buzz. Monstrous spiritual light began to howl above Sun Tzu's head, vaguely forming the shape of a huge mountain. The world was about to collapse, as if it was upside down. All the cultivators in Tao Enlightenment City looked at the falling mountain with a strong sense of fear in their eyes. Is it an illusion? Why is the mountain in the sky? F***CK. Could it be that I'm standing upside down? Isn't that the City Lord? Who is that old man in front of the City Lord? He seems to be the one who moved the mountain here. He can't be thinking of smashing Tao Enlightenment City, right? Who dares to cause trouble under the sect master's nose? Let's wait and see. The Taishan Dao sect will definitely not sit by and do nothing. If we wait and see, I will really run, brother. Many people looked at each other. They looked at Sun Tzu with respect and fear, but more than that, they were confused. In their eyes, the sect master of Taishan was an existence comparable to the divine master of the sacred sect. Sun Tzu's methods were shocking, but he was definitely not a match for the sect master. How about it, City Lord? If you scram now, I can spare your life. Sun Tzu's eyes were filled with playfulness. As long as he wanted to, he could crush this city in an instant. I said, if you dare to touch the young master, you won't be able to leave this city. The city lord of Tao Enlightenment City still did not take half a step back and smiled faintly. In his hand, an ancient sword emitted a mysterious light. The biting cold sword light whizzed out, cutting the space into pieces. You don't know what's good for you. Sun Tzu shouted coldly and pressed his palm down. The world suddenly fell into darkness. The huge mountain that covered the sky slowly fell towards the city lord and Ling Shao with an unstoppable momentum. Young master, leave first. Go to Tao Enlightenment Mountain. I will stop him for a moment. The city lord of Tao Enlightenment City turned his head and looked at Ling Shao. However, at this moment, the latter only shook his head calmly. There was even a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. The cloud-gathering merchant alliance? Most likely, it was to intimidate him so that he would retreat and leave Su Yen voluntarily. However, the successor of the cloud-gathering merchant alliance had already submitted. He did not believe that Sun Tzu would dare to kill him. Of course, although a fifth-grade divine emperor was terrifying, if he wanted to leave, he might not be able to stop him. The divine wings of wind and thunder was a peerless Tao artifact. Its power was evident. In particular, he had comprehended both the laws of wind and thunder. When he activated the divine wings, it was naturally twice the result with half the effort. Want to leave? All of you, stay here. Sun Tzu intended to show off. The spiritual light outside his body shot into the sky. The huge mountain seemed to be covered in golden light. It was sacred and majestic, like a sacred object of the 9 heavens. However, just as the city lord of Tao Enlightenment City took a step forward, the slowly descending sacred mountain suddenly stopped in midair. Even the cold smile on Sun Tzu's face froze before it disappeared. He raised his head and looked at the mountain above his head in confusion. His mouth was slightly open. Obviously, he did not understand what had happened. Fall, fall, fall. Sun Tzu waved his hand fiercely. However, the mountain did not move at all. Laughter immediately came from Tao Enlightenment City. F***CK. This Sun Tzu, he got stuck in the middle of showing off? As if he had heard the noise coming from the city, Su Yen suddenly flew out from the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. Behind him, Su Wenye and the other 5th-grade Divine Emperor hurried out of the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. However, in the next moment, the 3 of them narrowed their eyes fiercely. At this moment, in the sky above Tao Enlightenment City, Sun Tzu raised his head in horror and looked at the mountain that had suddenly split open. Then, a palm fell from the sky. It instantly shattered the void and pressed down on him. Chapter 329. Buzz! The sound of the great path suddenly reverberated in the sky. The wind and clouds changed, and the entire Tao Enlightenment City seemed to tremble for a moment. Boundless Tao patterns shone brightly in the palm, and the innate spiritual aura seemed to be formed naturally. Oh no! Brother Sun! Beside Su Wenye, the other 5th-grade Divine Emperor's eyes narrowed. His figure flashed, and he instantly appeared beside Sun Tzu. Spiritual light bloomed from his body, and the shadow of a black tiger appeared above their heads. Murderous intent swept across the sky, and the black tiger roared to the sky. It then turned into a flowing light and rushed toward the palm print. However, a frightening scene appeared. Before the black tiger could touch the palm print, it was crushed by the Tao aura that it emitted. Then, the palm print that seemed to have transcended the great path finally landed on the 2 5th-grade Divine Emperors. Poof! Without hesitation, 2 flowing lights shone in the sky like meteors. However, they were crushed by the palm print in the end, and they fell down heavily. Just as the cultivators in the city were looking at the huge palm above their heads in horror, the sky flashed again, and the palm print and the 2 Divine Emperors suddenly disappeared. Boom! In the north of Tao Enlightenment City, a barren mountain was instantly flattened. Heaven and earth were silent. Only the smoke and dust that rose into the sky seemed to prove that a shocking battle had taken place here. Although it was shocking, from the beginning to the end, Sect Master Taishan had only thrown out one palm. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the black-robed Tao shadow that was flying over from afar. There was nothing but respect in their eyes. Even Su Wenye had a look of intense shock on his face. Sect Master Taishan was so terrifying? The spiritual aura contained in the palm print seemed to have transcended the great path of the universe? As expected of someone from 1,000 years ago. From the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao did not move, and he did not even use any spiritual power. Just now, the moment the great mountain fell, he felt the fluctuation of Liang Yi's divine sense. It was strange, but he did feel it. It seemed to originate from the demonic body, and it also seemed to be a connection of the same origin. However, even though Ling Xiao had guessed that the Lord of Taishan was very strong, he did not expect him to be this strong. That palm strike indeed did not contain the slightest bit of the power of Tao laws, but it was a completely natural state. It was as if he had become one with the heavens and the earth, and the heavenly Tao was within his palm. But if that was the case, how strong was the divine master of the sacred sect? Otherwise, the Lord of Taishan could have unified the Xingzhou. Why would he stay in a corner? Boom! Suddenly, two figures flashed out from the ground on a barren mountain in the distance. Their auras were weak, and they seemed to be in an extremely sorry state. It was especially so for Sun Tzu. His two arms hung limply at his side, and all the bones in his body seemed to have been completely shattered by that palm strike. He was carried by another fifth-grade Divine Emperor as they rushed back to Tao Comprehension City. Alliance Master Yunlai was still here, so they couldn't leave. Moreover, Lord Taishuan's attack just now was enough to kill the two of them on the spot. Obviously, the Tao Lord had held back. Sect Master Taishan, you're going too far. Do you really want to become enemies with the Cloud Alliance? Sun Tzu's face was ferocious. The intense pain from his body almost made him lose his mind. How many years had it been? How many years had it been since he tasted such pain? However, at this moment, no matter how unwilling he was, he didn't dare to move recklessly. He could only bring up the Cloud Alliance in an attempt to regain some dignity as a divine emperor. Is the Cloud Alliance surnamed Sun now? Sect Master Taishan slowly walked in front of Ling Xiao. He looked coldly at Su Wenye and Su Yan, who were walking over from the Spirit Treasure Pavilion, and said calmly. At this moment, all the cultivators in Tao Comprehension City were completely ecstatic. Sect Master is too awesome. He suppressed two divine emperors with one palm strike. What do you know? Sect Master obviously didn't kill them. He already left some face for the Cloud Alliance. I didn't expect this *T Divine Emperor to still be so arrogant. *T Divine Emperor? Brother, you seem to be only in the Xianqing realm, right? So what if I'm in the Xianqing realm? With the sect master's protection, how can I cultivate? It's impossible for me to cultivate. The scenery in Tao Comprehension City is beautiful, and the people are kind. Of course, happiness is the most important thing in life. That makes sense. The sect master is mighty. Countless cultivators were so excited that they were trembling. Therefore, no matter which world it was, this kind of face-slapping scene was the most touching. Haha, so it's the sect master himself. Su Wenye's eyes were gloomy as he grabbed Su Yan tightly. He was afraid that his daughter, who cared about the Cloud Alliance's face the most and had grown up with Sun Tzu, would lose control of her temper and anger sect Master Taishan. Father, why are you grabbing me? Let go. Su Yan's face was cold as she struggled to break free from Su Wenye's hand. Before the latter could react, she rushed towards sect Master Taishan. Yener, don't be rude, however. Before Su Wenye could finish his sentence, His expression completely froze. At this moment, Su Yan didn't even look at the injured Sun Su. She rushed to Ling Zhao's side and held the latter's hand with concern. She asked softly, "Young master, are you hurt? They didn't make things difficult for you, right? It's Yen Er's fault. Yen Er is useless." As she spoke, Su Yan actually shed tears of regret. "It's okay. Yen Er, don't worry." Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. As for Su Wenye and the others, their mouths had already opened to a strange degree. Their daughter had grown up. Was she not going to stay in the family? "Young master, are you frightened?" Then, an even more frightening scene appeared. Sect Master Taishin, who was originally dignified and could suppress the world with a wave of his hand, suddenly turned around and faced Ling Xiao. He bowed down. F***CK? What's wrong with this world? Since when did the strong have to bow down to ants? Su Wenye felt that his worldview was shattered. Wasn't the law of the jungle the law of the world? And that descendant of Ling people was just a mere Paong? What did he have that was worth Sect Master Taishin bowing down to? What did he have? Money? Power? Talent? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It's okay. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. An elegant aura flowed out of his body, causing the legs of countless proud girls in the city to tighten. Alliance Leader Su, your imperial dog is causing trouble in Dao Enlightenment City. Today, shouldn't you give me an explanation? Sect Master Taishin stood up and looked at Su Wenye. Although the Cloud Alliance was powerful, but how could such an opportunistic person enter Sect Master Taishuan's eyes? As long as Ling Xiao gave the order, he could kill this person with a wave of his hand. It didn't seem appropriate to kill him. After all, he was the father-in-law of the Lord. Haha, this is just a misunderstanding. There's no need to be angry, Sect Master. Su Wenye's eyes were gloomy, but there was a sincere smile on his face. Just now, he clearly saw a flash of murderous intent in Sect Master Taishuan's eyes. Did he really want to kill him? Just because of Ling Xiao? Young master, what do you think? Sect Master Taishin did not pay attention to Su Wenye. Instead, he turned to look at Ling Xiao, as if he was asking for his opinion. This scene caused the entire Dao Enlightenment City to fall into a dead silence. Haha, the Alliance leader just wants to invite me for tea. It's probably a misunderstanding. Ling Xiao lowered his head and saw the grievance and pleading in Su Yan's eyes. He shook his head slightly. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Su Yan's face. She snuggled into Ling Zhao's arms in front of everyone. I knew it. Young master loves Yen Er the most. Hiss. Sounds of people sucking in cold air could be heard from the surroundings. What was this called? A winner in life. A beauty in his arms, and the sect master bowed down. No, a winner in life was not enough to describe Lord Ling Xiao. This was probably the legendary destiny. Young master, you are the mountain that I can only look up to in my life. You are the deep sea that I dare not sink into. You are the unreachable shore in the hearts of cultivators of my generation. Chapter 330. Why? How could it be? What was Ling Zhao's strength? Su Yan might have been too young and ignorant. Could it be that the sect master was also a fool? Su Wenye narrowed his eyes. He felt as if 10,000 alpacas were running through his heart. How many years had it been? How many years had it been since someone could make his calm heart ripple? Maybe I shouldn't have asked. You're too awesome. I want to know everything about you. Since you said it was a misunderstanding, Sect Master Taishin looked at the cold smile on Ling Zhao's face. He narrowed his eyes and turned to look at Sun Su and Xian Xian. But you two said that you want to be enemies with the Taishin Dao sect? Is this Alliance Master Su's intention? Sect Master, you've misunderstood. The Yunlai Business Alliance has always been on good terms with the Taishin Dao sect. How could we hurt our relationship because of this? I just wanted to invite Lord Ling Xiao to have some tea. I didn't expect such a big misunderstanding to occur. Haha, elder son, elder Xian. Why aren't you apologizing to the sect master? Su Wenye's face was amiable. There was no anger at all. Given his temperament, he had long been trained to remain calm in the sea of business. It was just that the Ling Xiao today had truly exceeded his imagination. He originally thought that this person was as fierce and domineering as the rumors said. However, he did not take a mere descendant of the Ling people seriously. However, he knew that he was wrong. Given sect master Taishuan's status, he would never be so humble to the descendant of a force. This Ling Xiao was not simple. Or rather, from this moment on, Su Wenye had already regarded him as someone of equal status. Was it the saint? Impossible. However, apart from this force, what else in the Xingzhou was worthy of sect master Taishuan's respect? Even the Holy Church did not take the Lord of Taishan seriously. It was rumored that decades ago, an elder of the saint was killed by this sect master when he was showing off in Enlightenment City. He left a message saying that the people and dogs of the saint were not allowed to enter the city. In the face of such humiliation, the saint surprisingly tolerated it. Thus, the Taishan Dao sect became famous overnight. They were independent of the Xingzhou continent, hidden from the world and respected by the sects of the eastern border. Some said that this Taoist master was a reincarnated immortal, and killing him would taint one with endless karma. Some said that the Taishan Taoist sect had the protection of the gods and demons. Even the sacred sects would not dare to provoke them. In any case, the words Taishan sect had become a taboo for those who acted tough. Alliance Master. Sun Tzu's eyes narrowed slightly as he gritted his teeth so hard that they almost shattered. After acting tough for so long, he ended up slapping himself in the face. Moreover, since the Alliance Master had already made his stance clear, if he dared to resist, he probably wouldn't be able to walk out of Dao Enlightenment City alive. Taoist Master. Sun Tzu has offended you. In the end, the two fifth-grade divine emperors bowed to the Lord of Taishan at the same time. Humph! The Lord of Taishan just snorted coldly and walked in front of Ling Xiao. Young Master, this talisman contains an incarnation of my spiritual soul. If anyone dares to disrespect you again, no matter who it is, they will be killed. Thank you. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and bowed slightly. Although the Lord of Taishan was Liang Yi's servant, he was equivalent to his own servant. However, if it was too obvious in front of so many people, it would be suspicious. However, the Lord of Taishan was so powerful. Why hadn't the sacred sects done anything to them? After all, Liang Yi also said that the divine master of the sacred sects might have come from the upper worlds and could suppress a world. His cultivation was most likely at the supreme realm. But why? Taoist Master, there is something I don't understand. The sacred sects, my lord, the divine master of the sacred sects once sent a messenger to me and asked me to bow down, but I killed him. In Dao Enlightenment Mountain, even if the Venerable comes personally, he will definitely die. My lord, you don't have to worry. The Lord of Taishan transmitted his voice through his divine consciousness. He bowed again and turned to leave. No wonder. Ling Xiao suddenly understood. No wonder the Taishan Taoist sect had been in seclusion. With this person's means and Liang Yi's, even if his cultivation was not there, the trump cards in his hands were probably unimaginable. Even a random ancient formation was not something that could be broken by ordinary people. However, even now, the sacred sects would still have people watching this place. Once the Lord of Taishan walked out of Dao Enlightenment City, there would definitely be a disaster. A spiritual incarnation of a ninth-grade divine emperor. Ling Xiao looked at the golden talisman in his hand and a smile appeared on his face. This trump card was much more powerful than the spiritual treasure fragrance of fate. But why was there only one? If you give me 10 more, I will be invincible in this world. What a joke! This spiritual incarnation was originally refined from the original body's spiritual soul. The consumption was huge. If he refined too many, he would have the talisman, but his life would be gone. My lord, are you really okay? Looking at the disappearing Lord of Taishan, Su Yan breathed a sigh of relief. In front of the great emperor of the eastern border, she even felt suffocated. But why did he treat her lord? Do I look like I'm not okay? Ling Xiao smiled gently and reached out to rub Su Yan's hair. The latter immediately stuck out her tongue and smiled mischievously. That's good. If my lord is hurt, who will accompany me to cultivate tonight? That kind of burning passion that reached the depths of his soul really made him unable to stop. Gulp. Inexplicably, Ling Xiao suddenly felt that he was too careless. He shouldn't have. He shouldn't have used this excuse to fool Su Yan. This girl is obviously addicted to cultivation? Thinking of the endless years in the future, forget it, forget it. I'd better give her the burning scripture quickly and let her resolve the pain of the cold poison. Otherwise, Ling Xiao would die before the cold poison was resolved. As for why didn't he directly give this scripture to Su Yan that day? Haha, this year's Chinese Valentine's Day is over. Do you mean you won't celebrate your birthday? What about your anniversary? What about White Valentine's Day? Today is June 1st, Children's Day. You said that others can't do it? But it's only a festival that has a sense of ceremony. Only then can the relationship be more stable. Tell me quickly, do you not love me anymore? So, this feeling was probably temporary. To stabilize the relationship, touching can't stop. Yen'er, I suddenly remembered that Lin Shi is just a piece of trash. Maybe that ancient technique doesn't have a high requirement for one's physique. Ling Zhao's face suddenly became serious and a trace of surprise flashed across Su Yan's eyes. Really? Young master? You mean I can fuse the spiritual fire into my body? That's awesome. Since ancient times, although the spiritual fire of heaven and earth was a divine object, its power was not something that ordinary people could control. Even if it was an emperor god, he would also face the risk of dying if he fused the spiritual fire into his body. But now, or if she could fuse the spiritual fire into her body, Yen'er, I'll pass this technique to you later. Then you can start fusing with the spiritual fire. Ling Zhao's eyes seemed to be filled with warmth. But, Yen'er, this divine technique, if outsiders know about it, Ling Xiao sighed. This Su Yan had indeed surrendered. After all, the system couldn't solve it. But there were some things that he still needed to remind her to avoid unnecessary trouble. As a villain, if he didn't want to be a stepping stone and wasn't careful, there was a risk of dying at any moment. In my life, I must step on the peak of heaven and earth and sit on everything. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of time? F***ck. Why did I start to learn from the Son of Destiny? This sentence will definitely be scolded. I bet a packet of spicy strips. Young master, I understand. Su Yan's pretty face was solemn, but she didn't hide the affection in her eyes. Once this heavenly fortune was exposed, it would definitely attract countless covetous eyes. Even if her and Ling Zhao's background was terrifying, but in this world, there was no lack of crazy people. As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.